Chapter 3498. Besieging the way to save the Zhao Prime Minister Sima could not believe his own ears. Giving laxatives to the emissaries of other countries? Your Majesty, don't you think that this is a little immoral? Prime Minister Sima glanced at Yun Chujio. Seeing that she did not look like she was joking, he could only nod his head. In his heart, he thought that he should think of other ways to persuade the emissaries of the Star Sun Kingdom. If it really did not work, he would use the method that His Majesty had suggested. If he did this, it would be the biggest stain in his life. At this moment, the voice transmission talisman in Yun Chujio's storage ring started to vibrate one after another. Yun Chujio took it out and took a look. It was sent by Emperor Nan Xian and the other two. Yun Chujio could not help but curl her lips. She thought that these three old fellows were very calm, but she did not expect that they could not hold it in anymore. The content of the voice transmission talismans of Emperor Nan Xian and the other two was basically the same. They were asking if the situation was serious, and if she had any good strategies to solve it. Emperor Nan Xian and the other two were now in the same boat as Yun Chujio. If Yun Chujio was forced to step down, they would not be able to recover either. Naturally, they were extremely concerned. Yun Chujio casually explained the current situation. Then she asked the three of them to gather the army and prepare to start a war. Although Emperor Nan Xian and the other two were terrified, they didn't dare to ask any further. This was because they knew that if they offended Empress Jiao, they might not be able to hold on to their throne before the Sun Nation invaded. Yun Chujio put down the three people's voice transmission talismans, but her heart was moved. Back then, the three nations had joined forces to take care of the East Phoenix Kingdom, and she had used a counterplot to destroy the three nations. Could she do the same this time? He Xinzhou first let Prime Minister Sima go down, and then cupped her chin as she pondered. After thinking about it, she felt that it was basically impossible. The reason why the counterplot had succeeded back then was mainly because of her deep understanding of the situation of the various countries, and she had spies. However, she knew very little about the three countries of the Star Sun country, so the counterplot clearly had no effect. Di Baiming saw that Yun Chujio's brows were tightly knitted, and a sense of helplessness welled up in his heart. If his cold poison had not relapsed, he could completely help the little rascal kill the emperors of the three countries, and the three countries would definitely fall into internal strife. This would temporarily alleviate the crisis of the East Phoenix Kingdom. A trace of ruthlessness flashed across Di Baiming's eyes. He thought of the two bones that he had already found. If she was unable to survive this crisis, he could only take the risk in an emergency. Just as Di Baiming was thinking about it, he heard Yun Chujio laughing sinisterly. That laughter was exactly the same as every time she tormented him. Di Baiming subconsciously took a few steps back. Did she think of a new trick to torture him again? He Xinzhou reached out her claws and held a certain deity's little face. She kissed it a few times and then said excitedly, "Baby, I've thought of a good idea." Di Baiming was too lazy to correct her. He quickly asked, "What good idea have you thought of?" Yun Chujio said with a smile, "Surround Wei and save Zhao." Di Baiming had heard He Xinzhou mention the contents of the 36 strategies in the past, so he knew what it meant to surround Wei and save Zhao. His eyes flashed. "What do you want to do?" There are a total of 7 second-grade countries under the Jun Tian Kingdom. Currently, the Star Sun Kingdom, the Ghost Gold Kingdom, and the Wing Fire Kingdom have joined forces. As for the Willow Earth Kingdom, the Zhongyu Kingdom, and the Zhanshui Kingdom, they are not participating in the war because these three countries are not connected to the East Phoenix Kingdom. Even if they participate in the war, they will not get any benefits. If I can convince those three countries to stab the Star Sun Kingdom in the back, not only can I solve the current predicament, but I can also kill the Star Sun Kingdom. If I'm lucky, I can also take out the Ghost Gold Kingdom and the Wing Fire Kingdom. Ha ha ha, I'm so smart. Chapter 3499. Let's have a group battle. Di Baiming's eyes flashed with admiration. Although the little rascal's spiritual power was a little useless, his brain was still very useful. However, Di Baiming still poured cold water on He Xinzhou, who was so excited that she almost jumped up. Your method is naturally not bad, but how are you going to convince the other three countries? Moreover, time is tight now. Before you can convince the other three countries, I'm afraid that the armies of the three countries from the Star Sun country will attack. Yun Chuzhou was immediately awakened. That's right, she did not have the voice transmission talisman of the three kings. If she wanted to communicate with them, she could only send a letter. Most importantly, if she wanted to go to the three kingdoms, she would have to pass through the three kingdoms of the Star Sun Kingdom. They would definitely not let the envoys of the East Phoenix Kingdom go over. Even if they could think of a way to go over, it would waste a lot of time. By then it would be too late. While He Xinzhou was frowning, Di Biming said indifferently, "Those two trash might be able to help." Yun Chuzhou was stunned at first. Then she hugged Di Biming and kissed him. "Baby, I love you so much. You are so smart. You are indeed my man. You are almost as smart as me." A certain lord was embarrassed and angry. "Stop fooling around. Why don't you think about what to do?" He Xinzhou finally let go of her evil claws, then took out a piece of paper and pen to write a national letter. She felt that the wording was a bit unrefined, so she had to call Prime Minister Sima back. When Prime Minister Sima arrived, Yun Chuzhou told him about her plan. Prime Minister Sima was stunned for a while, then he said with a face full of admiration, "Your Majesty, you are really a man of great talent and great strategy. It is the good fortune of the people of East Phoenix Country to have a majesty like you. No, it is the good fortune of everyone in Towering Sky Continent." He Xinzhou was so proud that she almost could not control how many letters she sent. She managed to suppress the pride in her heart with great difficulty and said indifferently, "You are flattering me. I am only a little smarter than the average person. Here, this is the national letter that I have drafted. You can polish it." Prime Minister Sima took the national letter that He Xinzhou handed over. When he saw the dog-like words on it, the corner of his mouth twitched. As expected, no one was perfect. The words of their majesty were really difficult to explain in one word. Prime Minister Sima polished the national letter that Yun Chuzhou had drafted. In fact, it was nothing more than plain English. "Your Majesty of a certain country, you also know that the three bastards of the Star Sun Country are currently besieging our East Phoenix Country. If our East Phoenix Country is divided by them, then their strength will definitely be stronger than yours. In that case, it's inevitable that they will have designs on your three kingdoms in the future. In addition, even if your three kingdoms join their camp now, let's not talk about whether they agree or not. Even if they agree, you and our East Phoenix Kingdom are not close to each other, so you won't get any benefits. Now, an opportunity that can not only show your kingdom's pleasure in helping others, but also bring great benefits has arrived. That was, our East Phoenix Country would delay the allied forces of the three countries, while your three countries would stab the Star Sun Country in the back. They would definitely be able to take down the Star Sun Country very quickly. When the time came, our four countries would join forces and annihilate the Ghost Gold Country, and the Winged Fire Country would be a piece of cake. When the time came, our four countries would divide the territory of the Star Sun Country, and the three countries equally. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? Such a good opportunity was simply a once-in-lifetime opportunity. Therefore, we must not miss out on this opportunity. This opportunity is now or never. Quickly agree to our East Phoenix Kingdom's proposal. Let's have a team battle. Chapter 3500 was really fierce. Prime Minister Sima was completely in awe of their emperor's eloquence. If he were the emperor of the three kingdoms, he would definitely raise his hands and feet to express his approval. If such a good opportunity was wasted, it would be simply intolerable to the heavens. Yun Chuzhou took over Prime Minister Sima's embellished national letter and took a look. She curled her lips and said, "Prime Minister Sima, you are quite talented. It's just that your handwriting is a little ugly." Prime Minister Sima, don't you feel guilty saying that? His handwriting is ugly. It's simply 10,000 times better than your handwriting. Yun Chuzhou immediately told Xue Wuji the contents of the letter, and asked him to forge 3 letters. As for the jade seal, he could just get a large radish to carve it. Xue Wuji and Enfeng immediately changed their route and went straight to the Willow Country. Yun Chuzhou thought for a moment. Even if Xue Wuji and Enfeng split up, the 3 countries would not immediately respond. It would take them a few days, hence, the most important thing now was to stop the 3 countries' alliance army from invading. Yun Chuzhou thought of this and immediately asked Emperor Nanxian and the other 2 to lead the army to the border. She also brought Di Biming and Prime Minister Sima to the border. At this moment, The emissary of the Sun Nation who almost died in the latrine had already returned to the Sun Nation. The allied forces of the Sun Nation had also gathered and were ready to start a war at any time. When Emperor Nanxian and the other two saw He Xingjiu, their gazes were immediately attracted by the 3 to 4-year-old boy she was holding. Oh my, after not seeing each other for a few days, this Empress Zephyr had given birth to an illegitimate child? This girl was really fierce. A certain someone's eyes darkened. He swore to the heavens that he would never take that rejuvenation pill again. Definitely not. He Xingjiu did not tell Emperor Nanxian and the other two about joining forces with the 3 kingdoms of the Willow Country. This matter was of great importance, so she naturally had to be more cautious. Therefore, Emperor Nanxian and the other two had worried looks on their faces. They felt that they were most likely going to be finished this time. However, they still felt a little lucky in their hearts. Perhaps that young Master D of the female Emperor of Fenghua would come over to help. After all, his wife and son were here. They could not just leave them be, right? With that great weapon they might still have some hope of victory. Yun Chuzhou did not have the time to ponder over the thoughts of Emperor Nanxian and the other two. She immediately brought her men to check out the terrain of the border. There was neither a valley as a place to set up ambushes nor a formation that prohibited flying. Could be said that if the alliance army of the 3 countries wanted to attack, there would be no obstruction at all. It was not realistic to dig a trap. After all, the border stretched for tens of miles, and there was no way to complete the trap in a short period of time. He Xingjiu took out the map and looked at it. Then her gaze fell on a winding river. At this moment, the atmosphere in the tent of the alliance army of the 3 countries was very warm. The generals felt that the East Phoenix country was simply not able to withstand a single blow, and it would not take long to take it down. The Star Sun country was the initiator country, and they had even sent their crown prince Xing Jinyuan over to supervise the battle. Therefore, everyone made Xing Jinyuan the commander of the alliance army of the 3 countries. Xing Jinyuan said with slight disdain, "The border of the East Phoenix country has no natural dangers to defend, and there are no large-scale formations. Once the war starts, the alliance army of the 3 countries will definitely be unstoppable, and we will take down the East Phoenix country in one fell swoop." Ghost Gold Kingdom's 7th Prince Jin Haokui agreed. That's right. The East Phoenix Kingdom has been in turmoil for a period of time. Not to mention our 3 countries' alliance army. Even if we take out any country, they wouldn't be a match for us. Chapter 3501 was actually withdrawn. The 3rd prince of the Winged Fire Nation. Huaminji frowned and said, "Don't underestimate your enemy too much. It is said that the female emperor of Zephyr Nation has a mysterious mind. For her to be able to become the female emperor of the East Phoenix Nation from a 3rd-grade aristocratic family, she must have something extraordinary. It's just a rumor. What ability could a little girl have? Besides, even if she's a little powerful, she can still stop the allied forces of our 3 countries. I think she might send a surrender letter very soon," Jin Haokui retorted. Huaminji thought about it and agreed. No matter how powerful the female emperor of Zephyr was, she couldn't fight against the allied forces of the 3 countries alone, so he didn't say anything more. Everyone decided to wait another day. If the female emperor of Zephyr still didn't surrender, then they would start a war. Early the next morning, a general rushed over to report, "Marshal, the East Phoenix country's base opposite is very quiet. There isn't a single soldier. Should we go over and investigate?" Xing Jinyuan asked in puzzlement, "You said that there isn't a single person in the opposite base? Could it be that the East Phoenix country's people have been scared away by us?" Huaminji frowned. "I feel that this might be a trap set up by the female emperor of Zephyr Nation. When she fought with the Jingmu country previously, she used empty city traps and traps. Could it be that she has set up a trap in front of their main camp and is waiting for us to fall for it?" Although Xing Jinyuan felt that Huamingye's words were a little alarmist, if they fell for the female emperor's trap in this first battle, it would definitely affect their morale. Thus he said, "What the 3rd prince said makes sense. Just in case, General Feng, tell the soldiers to be careful and not fall into an ambush." Thus, General Feng led the soldiers carefully, and after some effort, they finally confirmed that there wasn't a single person in the East Phoenix Kingdom's camp. They had all retreated just like that. After Xing Zhenyuan and the others received the report, they were all dumbfounded. They had actually all retreated? Wasn't the war not yet started? The people of the East Phoenix country had all retreated? Jin Haokue laughed out loud and said, "How is it? I told you that the East Phoenix country couldn't withstand a single blow. They would definitely flee when they heard the news. Who knows, that female emperor of Zephyr might surrender very soon." Huiminji disagreed and said, "If they were to flee when the wind blows, wouldn't that female emperor just send a letter of surrender? Would she need to bring her army along with her?" Everyone thought that it made sense. What was this female emperor up to? However, no matter what, they couldn't waste their time like this. They still had to seize the opportunity to pursue and attack. Thus, the allied forces of the three countries advanced towards the territory of the East Feng Kingdom. The allied forces of the three kingdoms had walked for several hundred li in a row. They had even passed by 2 empty cities, yet they still had not discovered the army of the East Phoenix Kingdom. Not to mention the army, they had not even seen a single one of the commoners. It was as if the people of the East Phoenix Kingdom had disappeared into thin air. In order to prevent themselves from falling into Yunchuji's empty city plan or trap, the allied forces of the three kingdoms had to carefully scout every empty city or valley before they dared to continue forward. As a result, they had to stop and walk for several days. Xing Zhenyuan and the others were very pleased with themselves at first. They thought that the people of the East Feng Kingdom had been scared out of their wits, so they had all escaped. However, things had unexpectedly gone smoothly, causing these people to feel a little uneasy. They had a feeling that something wasn't right. Could it be that they had fallen into the trap of the female emperor of Zephyr? However, thinking about it, even if there really was a conspiracy, the strength of the three kingdoms could still easily win. Hence, they continued to pursue. On this day, the three countries were blocked by a big river. Chapter 3502 River Styx. Reporting to Marshall, the river in front is the heaven-tracing river. Although it is forbidden to fly, there aren't any high-level water beasts in this river. Moreover, from the looks of it, it might be due to the lack of rain recently that the water level has dropped a little. The water surface is also very calm. It is completely possible to swim across. General Feng reported. Xing Zhenyuan and the others stood by the riverside and looked towards the other side of the river. They did not discover the East Phoenix country's army. On second thought, although the heaven-tracing river's surface was very wide, it did not have any powerful water beasts. There was absolutely nothing to be afraid of. Just as Xing Zhenyuan was about to give the order to cross the river, a general came over with an uneasy expression and reported, "Marshal, we found a huge rock in front. Please take a look." Xing Zhenyuan's expression darkened slightly. What was there to see with the broken rock? However, he saw that the general's expression was conflicted. He still brought his men to the place that the general had mentioned. The soldiers surrounded the place from 3 layers to 3 layers. When they saw Xing Zhenyuan coming over, they quickly moved aside, revealing a large rock inside. Xing Zhenyuan focused his gaze and saw that the natural patterns of the large rock had formed 2 words. Netherworld. Xing Zhenyuan's expression immediately became a little ugly. He naturally knew what Netherworld meant. This meant that if they wanted to cross the heaven-tracing river, they would be courting death? Where was this stone found? Xing Zhenyuan asked gloomily. A few soldiers trembled as they said, "Marshal, this big stone was originally here. We didn't notice it at first, but we found a little bastard lying on top of this big stone. We wanted to catch it to make soup, but we didn't expect that little bastard to climb so quickly and disappear into the river. Then we saw that the patterns on this stone were somewhat strange." The soldiers also whispered to each other. The patterns on this stone were obviously formed naturally. Could it be a warning from the heavens? That little bastard could not have appeared on this huge stone for no reason. Perhaps it was to attract their attention. This was to warn them not to go any further. The soldiers then recalled that they had not seen a single person from the East Phoenix Kingdom. Perhaps the East Phoenix Kingdom had already known that the heaven-tracing river could stop the allied forces of the three kingdoms, so they had all retreated. When Jin Haokue heard the soldiers' words, he could not help but snort coldly. It's just a piece of broken rock. How can it be so mysterious? It's just a coincidence. As Jin Haokue spoke, he slapped his palm towards the huge rock. In his heart, he thought that if he were to smash this rock into powder, this rumor would naturally fall apart. Rumble! After a loud sound, the huge rock shattered into several pieces. However, what followed was a number of miserable screams. It hurts so much. My hand. My eyes. My eyes. Help. My face. It turned out that as the huge rock exploded, a lot of poisonous water actually sprayed out from it. That poisonous water had a very strong corrosive nature. Regardless of whether it was clothes or skin, as long as they were touched by it, they would be corroded away. Many soldiers had their faces injured by the poisonous water. Jin Hao Kuei was the closest to the huge rock, so he was also the most severely injured. Not only was his face disfigured, his left eye was forcefully blinded by the poison. If it weren't for the many high-grade elixirs on him, he probably wouldn't have been able to keep his life. Some of the soldiers whispered, "Oh my God! No wonder the word Netherworld is written on the huge rock. So it's actually Netherworld water inside. It's too terrifying. Could this heaven-tracing river also be poisonous water?" My right eyelid had been twitching for the past few days, and I kept feeling uneasy. I heard that the female emperor of Zephyr was a divine phoenix emissary. Why would she run away for no reason? Maybe she intentionally lured us here to the heaven-tracing river. Yeah, what you said makes sense. The heaven-tracing river seems peaceful. Maybe there really is some danger. Chapter 3503 Water Massacre. Xing Zhenun saw the soldiers discussing fervently, and his face couldn't help but turn ashen. The battle hadn't even begun, and the morale of the army had already started to weaken. He said coldly, "This is just a small trick of the East Phoenix Kingdom. Whoever dares to make any further comments will be punished by military law." The soldiers immediately didn't dare to say anything more, but their hearts were filled with fear. They kept feeling that this heaven-tracing river was unusual. Xing Zhenyuan and the others had discussed it. Now that the morale of the army was fluctuating, the best way was to quickly cross the heaven-tracing river. Otherwise, the rumors would spread more and more. Therefore, the allied forces of the three countries did not rest and directly began to cross the river. The Star Sun Country, the Ghost Gold Country, and the Winged Fire Country were not close to the sea, so they only carried a few large ships. It was obviously not realistic to transport all the troops there. Fortunately, the heaven-tracing river was calm, and there were no high-level demon beasts, so they could swim over. Therefore, Xing Zhenyun ordered the high-level generals to take the large ships over, while the ordinary soldiers had to swim to the other side on their own. At first, the soldiers were a little nervous. Was there any hidden danger in the heaven-tracing river? However, it was difficult to disobey the military orders, so they could only brace themselves and jump into the heaven-tracing river. However, seeing that the big ship carrying the high-ranking officers had reached the middle of the river without any problems, the soldiers became bolder. They were probably scaring themselves so nothing would happen. When most of the soldiers were in the river, someone vaguely heard a sound, which seemed to be the sound of a huge current. While everyone was puzzled, the sound of the roar became louder and louder. There was a huge current pouring down from the upstream. When everyone saw the huge current rushing towards them, they were instantly thrown into chaos. Some soldiers tried their best to climb onto the boats, while others turned around and ran towards the shore. All of a sudden, they stepped on each other. Screams and screams could be heard continuously. In an instant, the huge current rushed down. What was worse was that there were vines and water plants in the current. Those soldiers had no way to break free, and could only follow the direction of the current and be washed down. Even the few large ships carrying high-ranking generals were overturned by the huge waves. The generals fell into the water one after another, and were washed down with the current. On the shore, Xing Zhenyuan and the others were both shocked and annoyed. What was going on? Why did the flood suddenly start? Marshal, the downstream is filled with cliffs and cliffs. Moreover, it is forbidden to fly. Regardless of whether our soldiers return from the waterway or take a detour, it will take at least half a day or even a day. And we only have less than 1/5 of our troops left. If the people of the East Phoenix Kingdom launch a sneak attack on us, we will most likely be in deep trouble. Therefore, we should retreat first. Huaminji suggested. Jin Haoqi's face was covered with a thick white cloth. He gritted his teeth and said, "You are right. Whether it is that big rock or the flood, it is most likely that the woman emperor of the Zephyr nation's vicious scheme. If we don't retreat, we might fall into her trap. That bitch, if I catch her, I'll definitely tear her into pieces. Xing Zhenyuan saw that the two of them had said so and immediately ordered Bai Li to retreat to avoid being ambushed by the East Phoenix Kingdom. They would wait until the troops had regrouped before discussing a good plan to cross the river. Who would have thought that the next day at noon, there would be soldiers running back one after another? The wounded General Feng almost cried out, "Marshal, the East Phoenix Kingdom has set up an ambush on the cliffs on both sides of the lower reaches of the river. We were disoriented by the river water, and we were entangled by vines and aquatic plants. We were like living targets. We suffered heavy casualties." Chapter 3504 had even more surprises waiting for you. Xing Zhenyuan was stunned when he heard General Feng's words. Then he questioned loudly, "What did you say? Say it again." "Marshal, our people were ambushed in the lower reaches of the heaven-tracing river. They suffered heavy casualties." General Feng repeated. Xing Zhenyuan's head buzzed. Yes, both sides of the lower reaches of the heaven-tracing river were steep cliffs, and most of them were submerged reefs. It was simply the best place to set up an ambush. He recalled the Netherworld stone from before. The original intention of the East Phoenix Kingdom was not to use that stone to cause any harm to the allied forces of the three countries, but to force him to immediately give the order to cross the river. This way, he would not have the time to carefully examine the terrain and the surrounding situation. The East Phoenix Kingdom must have built a dam upstream. When they saw the army enter the river, they blew up the dam. This could explain why there was a flood all of a sudden. Moreover, the female emperor of Zephyr had calculated that once there was a flood, the remaining troops would not dare to cross the river by force. She could rest assured and deploy all her troops to the lower reaches of the heaven-tracing river to ambush them. This was a chain of events. The female emperor of Zephyr was indeed good at scheming. Xing Zhenyuan had not put Yun Chujiu in his eyes before, but this defeat immediately made him sober up a little. Jin Haokui said in a flustered and exasperated manner, "Marshal, are we just going to suffer this loss? If it were up to me, after we gather our troops, we should immediately force our way across the river. We don't want to cause any more trouble." Xing Zhenyuan looked at him unhappily. He was a little displeased with him. If it weren't for his bad temper that shattered the Netherworld stone, he wouldn't have ordered them to cross the river immediately. It was really a waste of time. Xing Zhenyuan was displeased, but because of the relationship between the two countries, he could only suppress his displeasure and say, "Seventh Prince, our soldiers have just been ambushed by the East Phoenix country. They will need to rest for at least 2 days. If they are in a hurry to attack, they might fall into the trap of the female emperor of Zephyr." Jin Haokui wanted to say something, but Huaminji said, "Let's do a head count first. Then we will send people to the upstream and downstream to check. If there are no abnormalities, we will cross the river again. It is safer this way." Xing Zhenyuan nodded, and then ordered his men to immediately do it. The next morning, General Feng reported the casualty figures that he had calculated. The East Phoenix country had actually relied on a flood to wipe out 50,000 allied troops. Although Xing Zhenyuan was mentally prepared, when he heard the number 50,000, his head still buzzed. They hadn't even fought head-on, yet they had already lost 50,000 men. If this was spread out, it would be a great humiliation. The three-country alliance army rested for 2 days and sent people to check the upper and lower reaches of the heaven-tracing river carefully. After confirming that there was nothing unusual, they prepared to cross the river again. Just as Xing Zhenyuan was about to give the order to cross the river, General Feng pointed to the other side of the river and said, "Marshal, there seems to be a person on the other side." As the heaven-tracing river was very wide, Xing Zhenyuan could only vaguely recognize that there should be a person standing on the other side. Just as Xing Zhenyuan and the others were feeling suspicious, a clear voice came from the other side of the river. "Hey, wasn't the flood that I sent you a few days ago a pleasant surprise? Hurry up and cross the river. There will be even more pleasant surprises waiting for you later." Xing Zhenyuan and the others immediately guessed the identity of the speaker. It was actually that damnable female emperor of Zephyr. That was because other than her, no other woman would call herself emperor of Zephyr. After that, the female emperor of Zephyr slipped into the bushes by the shore and disappeared. Chapter 3505. The sour taste. The allied forces of the three kingdoms were instantly in an uproar. That female emperor of Zephyr was really too despicable. Was that called a surprise? It was clearly a shock. She said that there would be another surprise? Oh God, the flood was already scary enough. What terrifying thing had she prepared this time? Xing Zhenyuan and the others were also bewildered. Although the upstream and downstream had already sent people to investigate and there was nothing unusual, when they heard what Empress Zhou said, they couldn't help but feel a little nervous. Humph! I heard that when the Zephyr female emperor fought with the Jingmu kingdom, she once played the empty city trick. This time she may be deliberately mystifying things, but in fact nothing happened at all. If it were up to me, let's rush over and ignore the nonsense. I want to cut that bitch into 1,000 pieces right now. Jin Haokui thought of his blind eye and hated Empress Zhou to death. Huiminji disagreed and said, that might not be the case. Maybe she is deliberately doing the opposite and making us think that she is using an empty city tactic. In fact, she has already set up an ambush to lure us into a trap. For a time, everyone agreed with Jin Haokui and Huiminji. Both sides had their own opinions, and the original head of Xing Zhenyuan was furious. If not for the flood incident, the original head of the punishment town would have ordered to cross the river directly. However, he had lost 50,000 people in the first encounter, so he had to be careful. Otherwise, his prestige would be greatly reduced. Perhaps the position of marshal would be taken away by Huiminji. After weighing the pros and cons, the original head of the punishment town had to send a few hundred people to cross the river first to check it out. In this way, even if there was danger, the losses would not be too great. The few hundred unlucky people who were chosen to cross the river first were so angry that they wanted to bang their heads against the wall. Why did they have to be the scapegoats? The female emperor of Fenghua across them was as cunning as a fox. She must have set up an ambush in the river. If they went into the river, they would definitely be in deep trouble. However, it was difficult to disobey a military order, so they could only brace themselves and go into the river. Because they were afraid of an ambush, the group of people were trembling with fear and walked very slowly. They swam all the way to the center of the heaven-tracing river, and nothing unusual happened. Only then did they feel a little more at ease. After a long time they finally reached the other side. They were afraid that there was an ambush in the grass by the shore, so they used their spiritual power to test it out. However, there was nothing unusual. Only then did they carefully climb to the other side. They were pleasantly surprised to find that nothing had happened. Damn it, it was another empty city trap. Seeing that those people had safely gone ashore, Jin Haokui curled his lips and said, how was it? I told you it was an empty city trap, right? Hurry up and let the army go over, or else that female emperor of Zephyr will run away again. Xing Zhenyuan nodded and immediately gave the order for everyone to cross the river. Finally, all the soldiers of the three countries' allied army passed through the heaven-tracing river and reached the opposite bank. Xing Zhenyuan heaved a long sigh of relief in his heart. They had finally come over. In order to speed up their progress, the three countries' allied army only made a simple adjustment and then quickly moved forward. They were prepared to pass through this no-fly zone and ride on flying spirit tools to catch up with the East Feng Kingdom's army in front. Not long after they walked out, they heard a miserable shriek coming from the front. Large swathes of land began to collapse, and there were poisonous blades stuck in the ground. Due to the no-fly zone and the large area of the collapse, there was simply no way to avoid it. Although the soldiers had set up their spirit energy shields to protect themselves, they were unable to withstand the pressure, pushing, and trampling of the soldiers in order to protect themselves. For a time, cries of grief filled the field. This was not all. Suddenly, many soldiers of the East Phoenix Kingdom appeared in front of them, throwing countless talismans, chili powder, and poison powder at them. Only then did the allied forces of the three countries tragically discover that the wind direction today was blowing towards their side. For a moment, the sour and refreshing feeling was simply excruciating. Chapter 3506. What other schemes does Empress Zhou have? The situation was out of control. No matter how Xing Zhenyuan commanded, No one would listen to him. They all sought ways to protect themselves. The army at the back saw this and jumped into the river in a panic. At least the river was safe. Who would have thought that there would be countless large ships coming down from the upstream and launching an attack on them? On the ship at the front stood a beautiful girl. It was none other than Empress Jiao. Xing Xinyuan's head was buzzing. He had fallen into another trap. Previously, the female emperor of Zephyr Nation had deliberately given up the two cities in order to buy time and set up this trap. However, he was puzzled. He had clearly surveyed the upstream and did not find any troops of the East Feng Kingdom. Moreover, there were cliffs on both sides of the river. How did these troops of the East Feng Kingdom suddenly appear? How would he know that the East Feng Kingdom had a monkey-like Empress Jiao? After the three countries' allied forces had finished surveying, this fellow had used ropes to drag everyone up. As for the person who had spoken earlier, he was merely a soldier who was good at imitating people's words. Xing Xinyuan was at a loss as to what to do at this moment. Huiminji said from the side, "Marshal, the morale of the army is in chaos now. Moreover, the area of the poison blade trap set up by the East Feng Kingdom is quite large. I'm afraid that we won't be able to pass through in a short period of time. Why don't we turn back and capture the female emperor of Zephyr? This way, the East Feng Kingdom's army will naturally fall by itself." Jin Haokue echoed, "That's right. To capture a thief, we must first capture the king. It'll be easy to deal with that slut once we capture her. Damn it, I didn't expect that slut to be so good-looking. If we capture her, it'll definitely torture her properly." Xing Xinyuan wished he could kill him with a single slash. At this point in time, he was still thinking about those things. What a waste. Xing Xinyuan immediately ordered the army to turn around and attack the East Feng army on the river. When the three-nation coalition army jumped into the river and was ready to surround the ships of the East Feng Kingdom, those ships suddenly accelerated and instantly pulled a distance apart. He Xinzhou stood on the deck and said with a smile, "A bunch of idiots. Come and chase us if you have the ability." Xing Xinyuan was almost angered to death. They only had a few ships in total, and it was impossible for them to catch up with the fleet of the East Phoenix country by relying on manpower alone. They could only watch as the fleet disappeared without a trace. Standing in the river, the allied forces of the three countries felt that they were all idiots. Ever since they entered the territory of the East Phoenix country, they had not even fought a proper battle. They had been toyed with like grandsons by the Zephyr Empress. What bullshit allied forces of the three kingdoms. If this carried on, they would be completely annihilated. Xing Xinyuan gritted his teeth. He had just brought his soldiers ashore and was prepared to go over after filling in the traps. Then, he heard Empress Jiao's wretched voice transmitted over. "Hey idiots, I'm back again. Come and catch me. Whoever doesn't dare to come is a turtle bastard." Xing Xinyuan had no choice but to bring his soldiers back to the water to attack the fleet of the East Feng Kingdom. Before they could even fight, the fleet of the East Feng Kingdom had already run away. After a few times, when Empress Jiao provoked them again, Xing Xinyuan did not order them to return to the river. Instead, he ordered them to do their best to fill in the traps. Seeing that the provocation was no longer effective, Empress Jiao did not continue to provoke them. Instead, she crossed her arms on the deck and watched calmly as the allied forces of the three kingdoms filled in the traps in the distance. Seeing this, the three-nation coalition army could not help but feel a chill in their hearts. This Empress Fenghua had a belly full of evil water. Could there be a conspiracy waiting for them? Chapter 3507 Their Majesty was not human on the deck. Prime Minister Sima's admiration for their Majesty could no longer be expressed in words. The old man asked with his starry eyes, "Your Majesty, the allied forces of the three kingdoms have already lost 80,000 to 90,000 troops. Moreover, we have already formed a pincer attack from both inside and outside. Should we launch a general attack and fight them head-on?" The corners of Yun Chujia's lips curled up. "No, pass down the order. While the allied forces of the three kingdoms are filling in the traps, get the people on the shore to retreat quickly." Prime Minister Sima was very puzzled by Yun Chujia's decision. "Your Majesty, this is a once-in-lifetime opportunity. If we retreat again, we will have to give up 2 more cities before we can retreat to Boulder City, which has a no-fly formation. Why are you doing this?" Yun Chujo smiled faintly. If we kill them all, the three kingdoms will send another army, and there will be even more of them. At that time we may not be able to hold out for a long time, so we will have to keep these idiots. Their role is to help us stall for time. Prime Minister Sima was stunned for a long while before he understood Yun Chuji's meaning. His Majesty wanted to hang Xing Zhenyuan and the others. Although it had dampened their spirits, he still wanted to give them hope. This way, the three kingdoms of the Sun Nation would not continue to send their armies over. Only then would the East Phoenix Kingdom be able to hold out for a period of time and wait for news from the three kingdoms of the Willowland Nation. Prime Minister Sima felt that His Majesty was simply not a human. His thoughts were always unexpected. It often made one feel that they had guessed correctly. But in the end, they discovered that it was not the case at all. Prime Minister Sima immediately ordered the people on the shore to quickly retreat to Boulder City. At the beginning of the war, Yun Chujo had already sent people to settle all the civilians in other cities. Therefore, the few cities near the border had long been empty. Yun Chujo felt that it was about time. She stretched her neck and shouted, "Hey idiots! I don't have time to play with you anymore. See you later." After He Xingzhou said that, she immediately led the fleet upstream and soon disappeared. Xing Zhenyuan was so angry that he gnashed his teeth. He wanted to go upstream to stop them, but he was afraid that he would be ambushed, so he could only give up. "Marshal, I think that stupid girl has run out of tricks. Otherwise, the army in front of her and her wouldn't have escaped just like that. They are relying on this heaven-reaching river. There is no such river anymore. Sooner or later, she will fall into our hands," Jin Haokui said with a cold smile. Huaminji frowned. "I have a feeling that something is not right. The East Phoenix Kingdom has already formed a pincer attack on us from both inside and outside. Why doesn't she make a move?" Jin Haokui snorted. Although they have formed a pincer attack from inside and outside, many of their soldiers are from the original third-grade countries. Their spiritual power is lower than our soldiers. Naturally, she doesn't dare to confront them head-on. She can only use some unorthodox methods. When Xing Zhenyuan and Huaminji heard this, they felt that what he said made sense. This could also explain why the East Phoenix country wanted to give up on surrounding them. Finally, the allied forces of the three countries filled up all the traps before they gave chase once again. After passing through 2 cities in a row, they were all empty. Not a single person was there until a towering city blocked the path of the allied forces of the three countries. Marshal, ahead is Boulder City. It is said that this city got its name because there were many boulders here before. Later, the commoners used those boulders to build this Boulder City. Boulder City's city is very sturdy. It is easy to defend but hard to attack. "I'm afraid we will need to spend a lot of effort to take it down," General Feng explained. Chapter 3508. Giant Rocks. Xing Zhenyuan and the others looked at the city. Indeed, the city was made of giant rocks and it looked extremely sturdy. On the city wall stood the soldiers of the East Phoenix Kingdom. They were ready for battle. Xing Zhenyuan felt that the allied forces of the three kingdoms had been attacking for days, so he did not order them to attack the city. Instead, he asked the soldiers to set up camp on the spot and then make a long-term plan. On the other side of the city wall, Empress Zhou was curiously looking at the huge rock that was piling up the city wall. The corners of Prime Minister Sima's eyes twitched. His Majesty's heart was really big. At this time, what was there to see with this broken rock? Back when the 4 kingdoms of the Dongfeng Kingdom had taken over the capital of the Jingmu Kingdom, the generals and guards of Boulder City had already surrendered when they saw the situation. Therefore, Yun Chujo didn't pay much attention to Boulder City. After arriving today, she realized that Boulder City was quite interesting. It was because the materials of these boulders were actually the same as the materials of the stone beasts at the gates of the Origin Killing Sect and the Origin Mixing Sect. Logically speaking, these boulders should be treated as treasures. After all, the stone beasts made from them could generate intelligence. Yet, they were actually built into a city wall just like that? What a waste of natural resources. However, on second thought, He Xingzhou estimated that it would take a very long time for the stone beast to generate intelligence, so no one bothered to do that. He Xingjia's heart moved again. The stone beast needed a very long time to gain intelligence, but not the puppets. She only had 5 puppets made from 1,000-year-old black iron. If she were to forge all the stones on the city wall into puppets? Prime Minister Sima was stunned to realize that His Majesty had gone mad. His Majesty was actually smiling at the huge stone on the city wall like a fool. He called out a few times, but there was no response. Prime Minister Sima could only look at a certain Zhou who had a cold expression on her face. Di Baiming glanced at a certain Zhou who was smiling foolishly. He was most familiar with this kind of smile. This fellow had always been greedy for money. He was afraid that he could tell that this stone was unusual. However, although this huge black stone was extremely sturdy, it could not be refined into a spiritual weapon. Other than being used as a city wall, it did not have much use. What was the little rascal planning to do with it? He Xinzhou laughed foolishly for a long time. She wished that she could get a huge stone right now to go back and test it out. However, the current situation was special, so she could only endure it. Thinking of this, he took out Shui Wuji's voice transmission talisman and asked, "Brother Wuji, how are things going?" Very soon, the voice transmission talisman began to tremble. Shui Wuji's smug voice came from inside. The three kingdoms of the Willow Country have agreed to establish an alliance with US and are mobilizing their troops. They will launch a sneak attack on the Star Sun Country very soon. Little sister Zhou, wait for my good news. Yun Chuzhou replied to Shui Wuji with a smile, and told Di Baiming and Prime Minister Sima about the news. Prime Minister Sima was so happy that he almost jumped up. There was finally hope. Di Baiming's brows also relaxed a little. If the three kingdoms did not agree to form an alliance, he could only take the risk and try other methods. At this moment, He Xinzhou faintly said, "Don't be happy too early. We are using the tiger to drive the wolf. Once the three kingdoms of the Star Sun Kingdom are destroyed, the three kingdoms of the Lutu Kingdom will definitely think of a way to destroy our East Phoenix Kingdom." Prime Minister Sima's face stiffened. Although he was unwilling to admit it, he thought about it carefully and realized that His Majesty's worry was completely necessary. His Majesty had a saying, "There was no eternal enemy, no eternal friend, only eternal interests." Now that they had the same goal, the three kingdoms of the Willow Country had formed an alliance with their East Phoenix Kingdom. Once the three kingdoms of the Sun Kingdom were destroyed, the three kingdoms of the Willow Country would definitely turn their attention to their East Phoenix Kingdom. Chapter 3509 introduced another wolf. When Prime Minister Sima thought of this, he asked with a heavy expression, "Your Majesty, then what should we do?" Yun Chuzhou laughed crisply. "What's there to be afraid of? If it really doesn't work, why don't we just bring in another wolf?" Bring in another wolf? Prime Minister Sima was confused. What did His Majesty mean by this? Di Baiming spat out three words calmly, "Juntian Kingdom." Prime Minister Sima was stunned for a moment before slapping his thigh. "I understand. Your Majesty, you mean that after destroying the three kingdoms of the Star Sun Kingdom, you will think of a way to point the spearhead of the three kingdoms of the Lutu Kingdom at Juntian Kingdom? With this, the three kingdoms of the Lutu Kingdom can only temporarily continue to form an alliance with us. Your Majesty, you are really too smart. The young prince is indeed worthy of being the son of you and young Master Di. He is truly incomparably smart. I am ashamed to be inferior to him." Di Baiming. Prime Minister Sima trembled. Why was it so cold? He glanced at Di Baiming's cold expression and could not help but feel his legs go soft. Did he say something wrong? Prime Minister Sima instinctively took a few steps back and quickly came up with an idea. He began to change the topic. "Your Majesty, if we can really destroy the Juntian Kingdom at that time, I'm afraid that the three kingdoms of the Willow Country are not as easy to fool as the three kingdoms of the Southern Dragon Country. How can you make them give up the throne of the Emperor of the Juntian Kingdom?" Yun Chuzhou smiled mysteriously. "I have my own ways to make the former subjects of the Juntian Kingdom support me as their emperor. As for the three kingdoms of the Willow Country, if they are obedient, they will be treated the same as Emperor Nanxian and the others. If they are not obedient, I will let my fiancé kill their emperor. Sai, who asked me to have a powerful fiancé. I will anger them to death." When a certain someone who was emitting cold air heard the last two sentences of Yun Chuzhou, he felt an inexplicable sweetness in his heart. He even looked at Prime Minister Sima more pleasing to the eye than before. Although Prime Minister Sima was extremely curious about what secret weapon His Majesty had, he did not dare to ask further and found an excuse to escape. Yun Chujo felt that the allied forces of the three countries would not attack the city tonight, so she and Di Biming went to the city lord's residence in Boulder City to rest. She had been traveling for days and had not had a good rest, so she went to bed early. A certain someone could not fall asleep. On one hand, he was anxious that his frost poison had not been good. On the other hand, Yun Chujia's coquettish or cunning appearance kept flashing through his mind, making his heart itch. However, when he thought about it, the frost poison had a tendency to worsen, so he could only deliberately avoid it. He thought of the previous blue marble, and felt that he had something to do with the Li Hate Palace looking for blue marble. He did not think that a mere Li Hate Palace had the ability to know his weakness. After all, even he had only just found out that blue marble would trigger his cold poison. Then who was the person behind the Li Hate Palace? A trace of determination flashed through Di Biming's eyes. It seemed that after his body recovered, he needed to remove another layer of seal. Otherwise, there would be no way to solve the mystery behind it, and there would be no way to take back what belonged to him. And there would be no way to protect little Jiu. The next day, during breakfast, Di Biming asked, "What do you want to do with those giant rocks?" He Shinjo giggled. "Make puppets. I only have 5 puppets made of 1,000-year-old black iron. I'm going to turn those giant rocks into stone puppets, the very big kind. With so many giant rocks, it's enough for me to make a small team of puppets." Di Biming frowned. "You're thinking too simply. Whether it's refined iron or dark steel, they can all be refined into puppets. How are you going to refine these boulders into puppets? Even if you turn them into puppets, their bodies won't be able to function flexibly. What's the use?" Chapter 35 Tinit on time. Yun Chujo was instantly dumbfounded. That's right, Shi Yuan sect and Hun Yuan sect Stone Pai Xiao and Stone Lion had gained intelligence, so the stone body could have a certain degree of flexibility. The puppet plate definitely couldn't do it, so could her separated spiritual sense do it? Although Hei Shinjo wished she could give it a try right now, the enemy was right in front of her. If she tore down the city wall, she would probably be beaten up by the group, right? Therefore, she had no choice but to temporarily suppress the restless desire in her heart. After eating breakfast, she climbed up the city wall to check on the situation of the Three Kingdom Coalition army on the other side. Just as Hei Shinjo was checking, the sky suddenly darkened. Hei Shinjo instantly had an ominous premonition in her heart. Fuck, could it be that the heavenly lightning was coming to strike her? This damnable heavenly lightning would not come sooner or later, but it had to come at this time. It was simply fatal. If the soldiers found out that their majesty was being struck by the heavenly lightning, their morale would definitely fluctuate. The most fatal thing was that it might destroy the flight-prohibiting formation. Therefore, she could only leave Boulder City to lure the heavenly lightning away. This fellow had wanted to lure the heavenly lightning into the Three Kingdom Alliance's camp, but there were too many people in the Three Kingdom Alliance. Things went wrong, he might lose his life. Therefore, this fellow had decided to leave the North City and come back after enduring the heavenly lightning. Hei Shinjo called Prime Minister Sima over and ordered in a low voice, "I'm going out to walk the heavenly thunder. Guard the city well. Be alert. Don't let the Three-Nation Alliance attack the city while the sky is dark. The most important thing is to protect the young Royal Highness. If anything happens to him, I won't forgive you." Walk the heavenly thunder? Prime Minister Sima was dumbfounded. He had seen how His Majesty looked like when he was struck by lightning, therefore, he could only nod and say, "Rest assured, Your Majesty. This Boulder City is extremely sturdy. It shouldn't be a problem to defend it for a few days. Even if I have to risk my life, I will protect the young prince." Yun Chujo nodded in satisfaction. "I reckon that the Three Kingdoms of the Willow Country will soon launch an attack. If you can defend it for 3 to 5 days, you will be able to escape. If there are any problems, you can just ask the young prince. He has a way to contact my fiancé's 2 subordinates." When Prime Minister Sima heard Yun Chujo say this, he immediately panicked. "Your Majesty, didn't you just go out to walk the thunder? Are you not coming back?" Yun Chujo said faintly, "It's hard to say. You know that the last time your majesty went out to walk the thunder, it took me so long to come back. I'm just taking precautions. Prime Minister Sima was about to cry. Your majesty, you should try your best to come back. All of us combined don't have your guts. Yun Chujo comforted Prime Minister Sima. Then she brought Di Biming to the side and said, I'm going out to walk Lei. To prevent me from accidentally entering another realm, here are 2 antidotes for rejuvenation pills. You can take them as you see fit. Oh right, here are the pastries I prepared for you. You can eat them slowly. Be good, baby. You have to grow up. You must remember to eat on time. He Shinjo did not care about Di Biming's reaction and ran away in a hurry. It was not that she did not want to say more, but the dark clouds in the sky converged at a very fast speed. In just a short while the sky had turned dark. If she did not speed up and draw the heavenly lightning away, the heavenly lightning would probably break the formation core of Boulder City. Di Biming looked at Yun Chujia's back and felt an indescribable feeling in his heart. He subconsciously opened the paper bag in his hand and was stunned. Chapter 35:11 Vanishing into thin air. There weren't any pastries in the paper bag, but several small porcelain bottles. Di Biming didn't need to open them to know that they must be Yun Chujia's blood. In fact, after he was poisoned by the cold, Yun Chujo had tried to use her blood to alleviate his symptoms a few times, but he had sternly rejected all of them. He thought that she had given up on this idea, but he didn't expect that she had already prepared all of this beforehand. He recalled the last time when he fainted on the flying spirit tool, and when he woke up he felt a little better. He thought that it was because his body had become smaller, but now that he thought about it, it should have been after he fainted. Little Joe must have fed him blood. When Di Biming thought of this, a sharp pain surged in his heart, and then his limbs and bones were filled with pain. He knew that because of the pain and guilt he felt at that moment, he had broken through the seal of the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Therefore, the cold poison was even more intense. Di Biming did not immediately seal the 7 emotions and 6 desires again. Instead, he took out the voice transmission talisman for Yun Chujo and said word by word, Little Joe, the reason why I sealed the 7 emotions and 6 desires is because I know that no matter what I become, as long as I have 1 breath left, I will fall in love with you again. Therefore, no matter what the situation is, you must believe that I am in love with you. I know all the grievances you have suffered. Believe me, I will find a way to restrain the cold poison. At that time, I will be at your disposal. After Di Biming finished speaking, he could no longer hold on. He sat cross-legged on the ground and resealed his 7 emotions and 6 desires. Not far away, Prime Minister Sima had a dumbfounded expression. What was the little crown prince doing? Why did he look so pained when he saw the item His Majesty had given him? Could it be that he missed his mother? That's right. He was left alone at such a young age. He would definitely feel terrible. On the other side, He Shinjo was running wildly. Although she noticed that there was a sound transmission talisman vibrating in her storage ring, she did not bother to look at it. This was because if she did not run quickly, heavenly lightning would strike. Finally, they had passed the no-fly zone. He Shinjo summoned her flying spiritual tool and flew toward a valley. The reason she chose the valley was to reduce the level of damage. She could not run to another city, right? Wu Yun in the sky was chasing after her relentlessly. Thinking of what happened last time, it was so angry that it almost fainted. This damn brat used it to break the seal of the Candle Sky Valley. She was playing it like a fool. How outrageous. She must be hacked to death today. He Shinjo landed the flying spiritual device in the valley and sat cross-legged on the ground. She said lazily, Hey my dear Xiao Yunyun, how did you know that I wanted to be struck by lightning recently? You came at the right time. This time you must hack me properly. I happen to want to reach the spiritual stage. If you perform well, I won't scold you anymore. Wu Yun in the sky was so angry that she was trembling. Dear Xiao Yunyun, Tui, whoever loved this little pervert, she was its enemy. No, she was its mortal enemy. Today she was dead for sure. It was still a familiar formula and a familiar smell. Wu Yun struck fiercely as soon as it came in, wishing that she could kill He Shinjo right away. Hei Xinjiu was not particularly flustered. After all, she had unlocked the new skill of walking thunder. As long as she did not end up in a no-fly zone, she could totally walk Wu Yun to death. Therefore, this guy still had the leisure to tease Wu Yun in the sky. He said slyly, "Hey little Yun Yun, you did well. Keep up the good work. If you perform well, I will give you a title, vanish into thin air." Wu Yun. Fuck, I can't live anymore. Chapter 35:12. Wings vanish into thin air? Isn't this damn brat cursing it to die? Besides, who does she think she is? How could she be qualified to give it a title? The more Wu Yun thought about it, the angrier he got. The lightning struck at Hei Xinjiu even more intensively. Hei Xinjiu summoned the little black bird and the little mushroom at a leisurely pace. Then she said to Wu Yun in the sky, "Dear Xiao Hanio, how come I haven't seen you for a few days and you seem to be useless again? You'd better work harder." Wu Yun was already numb. Fuck, he could say whatever he wanted to say. Anyway, he only had one goal now, and that was to kill that stinky girl. Yes, and that ugly fat bird and that damned Xiao Mogu. After a while, Xiao Hanio and Xiao Mogu both absorbed the thunder and lightning. Hei Xinjiu put them back into the spirit beast pouch while saying with a smile, "Xiao Yun, don't feel sorry for me. I'm not afraid of being struck. Let the heavenly thunder come even more fiercely." Wu Yun. It felt that it was going crazy. This stupid girl was too good at making clouds angry. Boom, boom, boom. Another hour passed, and Hei Xinjiu released De Hua. 10,000-year-old single pig, go. De Hua, who had turned into a black flower, instantly grew bigger and began to devour the heavenly lightning. Hei Xinjiu narrowed her eyes and said while looking at De Hua, "De Hua, are those wings of yours just for show? If you have the ability to fly into the sky, swallow that Wu Yun for me." Hearing that, De Hua flapped its wings a few times. Unfortunately, its wings were similar to Xiao Hanio's wings. It could not lift its huge body at all, and could only fly a few feet away from the ground. Hei Xinjiu curled her lips and said, "I thought it was a flying pig. It turns out that its wings are just like Xiao Hei's." It was most likely that her words had hit De Hua's sore spot. De Hua grew bigger and crazily swallowed the lightning that struck down one after another. Hei Xinjiu was stunned. Oh my, so De Hua's degree of darkening was endless? If she was stimulated again, would it bring her any surprises? Therefore, when this fellow had almost finished regulating his breath, he still stimulated De Hua in a different way. "De Hua, it's not that I dislike you, master. You said that they were both fierce beasts. At least Chongqi and Tao Wu had the appearance of fierce beasts. Don't you think that it's a joke that you, a dignified Tao Tai, turned into a pig? De Hua, it's fine that you said you were a pig, but it turns out that purple is pretty good looking too. Why did you have to turn into a black pig? What were you thinking? De Hua, I heard that you used to eat everything. Why are you picky now? No wonder you have turned into a spiritual beast and even lost your body." Unfortunately, no matter how much Hei Xinjiu said, De Hua did not change again. Hei Xinjiu could not be bothered to say anything more when she saw this. She sat cross-legged and combed through the thunder spirit energy in her body. As Hei Xinjiu released the pigs again and again, 10 hours passed. The spirit energy in Hei Xinjiu's body was not enough to release De Hua again. So she had to start walking the thunder. This fellow was afraid that it would affect the city of the East Phoenix country, so he began to walk in circles. Moreover, his mouth was not idle. "Little Yun Yun, do you know what your current behavior is called? This is called the cloud-pulling mill. Ha ha ha." Wu Yun was stunned. She had only heard of a donkey-pulling mill, but she had never heard of a cloud-pulling mill? Damn it, she was calling it a donkey in a different way. Wu Yun was so angry that she could not take it anymore. In her exasperation, a piece of cloud split into several pieces and surrounded Hei Xinjiu's flying spirit tool. The little girl in chapter 35:13 was going to be in trouble seeing this. Hei Xinjiu could only curse in her heart. This damned Wu Yun actually knew the split body technique? Although Wu Yun's strength had decreased after splitting into several pieces, it forced Hei Xinjiu to stop beating around the bush, and could only continue flying forward. This fellow took out a map and scanned it. To the west was a large desert. It shouldn't have any effect, so he went there. Therefore, Hei Xinzhou flew into the desert with a string of heavenly lightning and a few pieces of Wu Yun. The demonic beasts in the desert were dumbfounded. What the hell was that flying thing in the sky? Why did it attract so many tribulation clouds? After a short while, the demonic beasts saw a little girl jumping down from the flying spiritual device. Oh my, what did this human little girl do to attract so many heavenly lightning? She was probably going to be turned into ashes by the heavenly lightning bolts. But she deserved it. Who asked her to attract the heavenly lightning bolts? She almost scared them to death. The demon beasts were shocked to find that although hundreds of heavenly lightning bolts struck the little girl, she was still alive and kicking. She actually didn't die. However, the little girl soon showed a pained expression. The demon beasts felt that the little girl was probably not able to hold on any longer. Then they were dumbfounded to see that the little girl summoned a flying spirit tool, and then led a string of heavenly lightning to fly away. Oh my, there's such an operation. The demonic beasts stared at the flying spirit tool in the distance with their mouths agape. However, when they saw the flying spirit tool flying in the direction, they all revealed gloating expressions. That little girl was going to be unlucky. Hei Xinzhou had destroyed several flying spiritual devices, and Wu Yun had finally exhausted the power of lightning in the sky. Wu Yun had no choice but to leave in a huff. A sentence came to his mind. He had been defeated again and again. Seeing that Wu Yun had left, Yun Chuzhou pouted. She controlled the flying spiritual device and prepared to return to Boulder City. The guy suddenly remembered that the sound transmission talisman seemed to have vibrated before. He took out the sound transmission talisman from his storage ring, and Di Biming's voice came from it. Hei Xinzhou was stunned for a moment. Then she pouted and mumbled, "At least that pretty boy has a conscience." Listening to him, it's likely that he will seal the 7 emotions and 6 desires again. Hei Xinzhou wiped her tears with her sleeve and took out the sound transmission talisman, ready to reply to Di Biming. However, she was surprised to find that the sound transmission talisman could not be sent out. The guy was shocked. There was no way to use the talisman here? But fortunately, it was not forbidden to fly. She could reply to the pretty boy after she left this area. Hei Xinjia's thoughts were pretty good, but a full day had passed. She sadly discovered that she seemed to be circling because she had seen the low sea buckthorn grass on the sand dune a few times. Just as this fellow was feeling miserable, she suddenly heard several sharp bird cries. She looked through the porthole and saw countless demonic birds flying over from the distance. Their sharp claws and beaks flickered with cold light under the sunlight. Hei Xinjia's head was buzzing. Could it be that she had become a snack for these demonic birds instead of being struck to death by lightning? No matter how Hei Xinzhou thought about it, she felt that there was no way to survive. Those demonic birds were huge. With a flap of their wings, her flying spiritual device would fall into the desert. Once she landed on the desert, she would be eaten by these demonic birds immediately. Hei Xinzhou wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Why did she encounter such terrible things every time she walked the thunder? Chapter 35:14. While Hei Xinzhou was spinning around anxiously, the demonic bird at the front had already arrived in front of the flying spirit tool. With a flap of its huge wings, the flying spirit tool was like a small boat in a storm. It fell towards the ground. If it was an ordinary person at this time, they would probably have to wait for death. However, the more dangerous the situation was, the calmer Hei Xinzhou became. She quickly went through all her unreliable trump cards in her mind. The demonic bird in the sky revealed a trace of greed in its eyes. As long as the flying spirit tool landed on the ground, they would have a way to open the flying spirit tool. At that time, the people inside would be their snacks. As expected, the flying spirit tool landed on the ground like a kite with a broken string. Several demon birds swarmed up and began to tear at the flying spirit tool with their sharp claws and beaks. Although the material used for the flying spirit tool was very hard, some parts were still very fragile. In less than 15 minutes, a hole was torn in the flying spirit tool. The demon birds cried out excitedly. It was almost time to eat. The demon birds sped up, but after tearing for a long time, they did not find anyone. Where was the person? The demon birds were dumbfounded. They used their claws and beaks to pull at the flying spirit tool's wreckage, and finally found a big 8 shell. They were sure that someone was hiding inside, so they began to use their claws and beaks to attack the big 8 shell. However, the big 8 shell was unusually hard. No matter how they pecked and tore, they still could not open a crack. The demonic birds could not help but become angry out of humiliation. A few demonic birds worked together to grab the big 8 shell and fly it into the air. Then they fell hard to the ground. They were also dizzy with anger. There was sand below. Not to mention that the big 8 shell was very hard. Even if it was not very hard, it would not be broken. When the demonic birds saw that the big 8 shell was still intact, they were so angry that they screeched. In order to vent their anger, the bastard shell was continuously grabbed and thrown into the air, before it was violently thrown to the ground. Hei Shinjo, who was inside the bastard shell, was really unlucky. It was as if she was on a roller coaster. She was completely disoriented after being thrown. She was so angry that she gritted her teeth. Damn it, she just couldn't beat those bastards. Otherwise, she would have plucked all their feathers and roasted them. Seeing that they could not break the shell despite falling so many times, the demon birds could not help but feel a little discouraged. Most of the demon birds flew away in disappointment, but a few still did not give up. They worked together to catch the bastards and flew towards their nest. When they reached the nest, the demon birds threw the bastards to a corner. Their idea was very simple. The people inside would come out sooner or later, and then they could enjoy it to their heart's content. Hei Shinjo felt that it was no longer bumpy, so she looked out carefully through the crack in the bastard's shell. As this fellow did not dare to make the crack too big, she could only vaguely see a part of the scene. The ground was covered with some dry seabuckthorn grass, and some of the demonic beast's bones and fur. The air was filled with a fishy smell. Hei Shinjo was so disgusted that she almost vomited. Could this be the nest of those demonic birds? They were really unhygienic. Did they capture her and use her as a reserve food? She didn't know if there were any demonic bird eggs in the nest. If there were, they could be used to blackmail those bastards. Although this fellow thought so in his heart, he didn't dare to act rashly. If there were demonic birds guarding by the side, it would be bad. Chapter 35 15-inch You Are My Bird Now. Hei Shinjo sat in the bastard's shell, holding her chin and thinking of a countermeasure. Suddenly, her eyes lit up, and she smiled sinisterly. These damn bastards dared to capture her, so she would let them taste the sleeping powder immediately. Wisps of smoke spread out from the crack in the bastard's shell. A bird that was responsible for guarding the bastard's shell could not help but feel sleepy. After a while, it finally collapsed in the nest. Hei Shinjo listened carefully and saw that there was no movement. Then she slowly poked her head out from the inside of the bastard's shell. When she found that there was still nothing unusual, she crawled out from the inside of the bastard's shell. She immediately found the demonic bird lying on the ground next to her. This guy would not stop until he made a temporary contract with that demonic bird. She had to admit that the bird was bold enough and had enough confidence in her spiritual sense. If the spiritual sense of the demonic beast was strong enough, it could completely devour the person who established the temporary contract. The demonic bird was still asleep. Yun Chujo did not wake it up but continued to look around. She was surprised to find that this nest was on a cliff. She carefully approached the edge of the cliff and found that the entire cliff was filled with huge holes. It must be the nests of those demonic birds. Damn it, why were the nests of these demonic birds like beehives? They were all built together. It was too difficult to escape. This fellow suddenly had a thought. Something wasn't right. She had circled this desert many times before and hadn't discovered this cliff. Logically speaking, she wasn't blind to see such a large cliff that reached into the clouds. How could she not have noticed it? Could it be that these cliffs suddenly appeared? Or could it be that she had already left that area? Just as she was puzzled, she heard some movement from the cave nearby. She was so frightened that she hurriedly stuffed an antidote to the sleeping bird and hid inside the big bastard's shell. Almost as soon as Yun Chujo hid inside the big bastard's shell, a demon bird flew into the nest. When it saw the sleeping demonic bird, it pecked the bird with its beak in dissatisfaction. The demonic bird woke up from the pain and looked at it with a confused look. Then it lay on the ground again. That was because a clear voice came from its spiritual sense. Big Harry, you are my bird now. Do what I tell you to do. Otherwise, I will hurt your spiritual sense and turn you into a stupid bird. Big Harry, who had just come out of the oven, almost cried out loud. Wasn't it just sleeping in a daze? How did it turn into some bullshit, Big Harry? It was contracted by someone just like that? Oh my God. Could it be so cruel? It didn't even know what that damned brat looked like, yet it became her bird? The other demonic bird saw Big Harry's dazed look and cried out in dissatisfaction. What are you standing there for? Is there any movement inside this bastard's shell? Big Harry shook his head in a daze and stuttered. No, there's no movement. The other demonic bird looked at him suspiciously and warned, let me tell you, if you dare to secretly eat it all for yourself, we won't let you off. Big Harry's heart was like a beeping dog. Eat what? Eat it all for yourself. It had already become that smelly girl's bird. It was already good enough that she didn't eat it. Woo-woo, it is simply too unlucky. If I knew this, it should not have volunteered to guard this son of a bitch. Chapter 35:16 The other demonic bird gave Big Hair another warning before flying away. Hei Shinjo saw that the demonic bird had left and then leisurely climbed out of the bastard's shell. Although this bastard's shell could not withstand the heavenly lightning, it would still take a lot of effort for an ordinary demonic beast to break it. However, because this bastard shell was left behind by the little bastard's mother, Hei Shinjo was afraid of accidentally breaking it, so she rarely used it unless it was absolutely necessary. It had to be said that although Hei Shinjo had no moral integrity, she still poured her heart and soul into her own people. Big Harry saw that Hei Shinjo wished he could go up and peck her to death, but now that he had no choice, he could only droop his head and say nothing. Big Harry, when you see your master, shouldn't you have something to say? Shouldn't you at least kneel down and kowtow? Hei Shinjo recalled that she was like a ball being tormented by these demonic birds, and she was instantly infuriated. Big Harry, kowtow? It would be better to let it die. Hei Shinjo was just saying it, and naturally Big Harry would not really kneel down and kowtow. She walked around the nest and did not find any demonic bird eggs. She thought to herself that this was most likely a single bird, so it did not have any eggs. She recalled her previous guess and took out the voice transmission talisman. However, she realized that she still could not use it, so she could only ask Big Harry, let me ask you, are we out of the area that trapped me? Does this place lead to Boulder City? Big Harry reacted for a long time before he understood what Yunchujo meant. It said with a drooping head, I don't know where Boulder City is. We can only enter the area that you were trapped in from one place. We only go in to hunt occasionally. Yunchujo blinked her eyes. She guessed that the place that the silly bird mentioned should be a loophole in the formation or a life gate. No matter what, they had finally left that area and could just go around in another direction. Therefore she asked, let me ask you, if I go in another direction, where does it lead to? Big Harry looked at Hei Shinjo as if he was looking at an idiot. This place is surrounded by the sea on 3 sides. Other than that area which is land, the other 3 sides are all sea water. Yunchujo did not pursue Big Harry's contemptuous attitude. Her face was full of shock. As far as she knew, the nearest sea to the East Phoenix country was millions of miles away, or even tens of millions of miles away. How did she manage to run to the beach after walking on thunder? Could it be that Wu Yun was behind this and had gotten her into some teleportation array? Big Harry saw the shocked expression on Yunchujia's face, and his eyes revealed a hint of disdain. One look and he could tell that she was a country bumpkin. She actually didn't know anything. However, when it thought about how it was actually temporarily contracted by this country bumpkin, it immediately felt sorrowful. It wished that it could turn back time. It originally thought that the little girl would be stunned for a period of time, but it didn't expect that the little girl would quickly calm down and ask Big Harry, what kind of bird are you exactly? What is your spiritual power level? And what sea is outside? The sea outside is the vault of heaven, and we are level 55 shadow-skimming giant-winged birds. We are much higher than your level 8 spiritual illusion, Big Harry said arrogantly. In fact, Yunchujo had already reached level 1 of the spirit transformation, which was equivalent to the level 53 of a demon beast. However, she hadn't had time to adjust the hidden spirit ring. Hearing Big Harry's words, Yun Chujio adjusted her spiritual power level to level 1 of the spirit transformation. Then she sneered and said, "See? My actual spiritual power is much higher than yours. It's just that I keep a low profile, so I deliberately hide my spiritual power. If I reveal my real spiritual power level, I will scare you to tears." Chapter 35:17. Bluetail. Big Harry saw that the light on Yun Chujio's body flashed and instantly increased by 2 levels. He immediately believed her words by 50%. When he thought about how this little girl had easily established a temporary contract with him, it could be seen that her spiritual sense was very powerful. How could her spiritual power only be at the 8th level of the spirit illusion realm? Therefore, Big Harry immediately imagined Hei Shinjo as a formidable character who pretended to be a pig to eat a tiger. When Big Harry thought of this, his arrogant expression immediately disappeared. He said with some flattery, "Little fairy, since you are so powerful, why didn't you counterattack us before?" Yun Chujio curled her lips. "I just used you to get out of the desert. Otherwise, I would have killed all of you with one finger, you little rookies." Big Harry suddenly understood. So that was how it was. No wonder she did not resist. Just as Big Harry was thinking, he heard the sound of wings flapping outside. Before he could react, he saw a certain Joe, who had been bragging, slip into the son of a bitch's shell. She even used her spiritual sense to say, "Don't say the wrong thing. If you let it slip, we will all die." Big Harry. What happened to the unworldly expert? What happened to pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger? Damn it, it turned out that he was lying to it. Big Harry felt a deep malice. Not only was he muddled by the temporary contract, but he was also fooled by that smelly girl just now. He almost thought that she was really some powerful almighty. That's right, how powerful could a little girl be? He had really lost his mind. Just as Big Harry was cursing in his heart, the demonic bird flew in again and looked around suspiciously. Then he said, "Why is there a human's aura here? Did you steal the human inside the bastard's shell?" Big Harry said unhappily, "Eat what? That bastard's shell is incomparably hard. How can I eat it? Besides, if I eat it, how can my mouth not have blood?" When the demonic bird heard that, it felt that it made sense. Then it said, "The leader said that we have to give this son of a bitch's shell to our king tomorrow morning. Our king is more powerful than us, so he will definitely be able to break this son of a bitch's shell. Tonight you have to guard it well and not slack off to sleep. Do you hear me?" Big Harry was shocked and quickly said, "Bluetail, is what you said true? That's not good, right? If our king can't break this son of a bitch's shell, won't he blame us?" "Why would the king blame us? This is our goodwill. The king will definitely have a way to eat the humans inside." Although Big Harry was extremely anxious, he did not dare to say anything more. He was afraid of being suspected by Bluetail, so he could only say, "All right, since that's the case, don't worry. I will definitely guard this bastard's shell well." Bluetail nodded and flew out of the nest. Big Harry walked to the side of the bastard's shell and said anxiously, "Just now, Bluetail said that the leader wants to offer you to the king. The king is 3 levels higher than us. Maybe he can get you out of there. Think of something quickly." Hei Shinjo almost burst out laughing when she heard the name Bluetail. She sympathized with that demonic bird called Bluetail. What kind of sin did it commit in its previous life that it was given the name of an appendix in this life? Big Harry naturally did not know what she was laughing about. He said snappily, "You still have the mood to laugh? Hurry up and think of something." Yun Chujio sat inside the bastard's shell and blinked her eyes. "Where is your king's nest?" Chapter 35:18. 10,000 feet tide. Our king's nest is on the other side of the cliff, occupying half of the cliff. Because in there, besides the king, there are also the king's concubines and children. De Mao's eyes revealed a hint of envy. Yun Chujio rolled her eyes. "On the other side of the cliff? Is the other side of the cliff the side facing the sea?" Big Harry nodded and said, "That's right. It's more convenient to hunt sea beasts and fish in the sea, So the king has arranged the nest on that side. Yun Chujo immediately said with a smile, then it's easy to deal with. Tomorrow, when you are transporting the bastard shell, you will deliberately miss and let me fall into the sea. Won't that do? Big Harry thought that it was not impossible. Although it would be scolded a little, it would not do anything to it, so he said, all right, but you have left. What about the temporary contract? Hey Shinjo said with a smile, don't worry. As long as I get my freedom, I will immediately cancel the temporary contract. No matter how bad it is, the temporary contract has a distance limit. If I go far away, the temporary contract will naturally be cancelled. Although Big Harry was still a little hesitant, he could not think of any other way. If he really offered this little girl to the king, this little girl would definitely drag him down with her before she died. So he could only agree. The next morning, Bluetail and the other two demonic birds came over. They and Big Harry worked together to grab the bastard shell and fly out of the nest. They flew to the other side of the cliff. Before they could enter the bird king's nest, Big Harry's claws loosened. The other three could not bear the weight of the bastard shell, and could only watch as it kept falling. Just as Big Harry was about to heave a sigh of relief, he saw a giant winged bird that was bigger than them grab the bastard shell with its claws and fly into the huge nest. Big Harry's head buzzed. Why did their king suddenly appear? It was over. That little girl had fallen into the hands of the king. She was definitely doomed. Her little life was going to be over. Blue-tailed and the other three demonic birds glared at Big Harry and followed him into the nest of the giant winged bird king. Big Harry could only droop his head and follow him into the nest. The nest of the bird king was more than 10 times bigger than Big Harry's nest. At this moment, the bastard shell was placed in the middle of the nest, and the bird king was pecking at it with its sharp beak. Every time the bird king pecked, Hei Shinjo felt the little bastard shiver. She could not help but ask with her spiritual sense, why? Do you think the bastard shell can't hold on any longer? The little bastard pointed at a few places with teary eyes and said, Master, look, there are already cracks here. Yun Chujo looked in the direction where the little bastard's finger was pointing at. As expected, there were already cracks in a few parts of the turtle shell. If this continued, the turtle shell would break sooner or later. Just as Hei Shinjo was frowning, she heard several shrill cries coming from outside. This bastard's heart skipped a beat. What happened? As she expected, the bird king stopped pecking at the king's 8 shells and heard the sound of wings flapping. It seemed that it had left the cave. Soon, Big Harry's panic voice came from Yun Chujia's spiritual sense. Not good. The once-in-lifetime tide is coming. The sawtooth sea pigs are attacking. I'm afraid that our nest is going to be lost. Yun Chujia was confused. The tide? Sawtooth sea pig? The nest was gone? She couldn't care less. After coming out of the bastard shell, she found that Big Harry was the only one in the nest. It was looking outside. Chapter 35:19 The opportunity for her to become the king had arrived. Yun Chujio walked to the entrance of the cave and looked outside. She saw huge waves constantly surging towards the cliff. The sea level had risen by several thousand feet, and most of the cliff had been submerged in the sea water. Fortunately, the nest of the bird king was built at the highest point, so it was not submerged in the sea water. Under the leadership of the bird king, the giant winged birds continued to fight with the sea beasts in the sea. Yun Chujio almost laughed out loud when she saw the sea beasts. The sawtooth sea pig was too ugly. Although it looked like a pig, it was 100 times uglier than a pig. It was covered in wrinkled skin and had a pair of huge fangs. However, although this sawtooth sea pig looked ugly, it looked very ferocious and was not afraid of the giant winged birds. Moreover, there were cracking sounds coming from under the sea. The sawtooth sea pigs were probably gnawing on the cliff. Big Harry said with grief and indignation, "It's over. It's over. Once these sawtooth sea pigs gnaw on the cliff, we won't have a place to settle down in the future. This cliff is the only one within a radius of tens of thousands of miles. There isn't even a small island." Yun Chujio heard Big Harry's words, but she was gloating in her heart. She deserved it. "I told you to eat me, you got your retribution." However, this fellow quickly thought that now was the time for chaos. Why not take the opportunity to escape? Hence, she said to Big Harry, Big Harry, quickly carry me and we will leave this place. Big Harry looked at the huge waves and heard his companion's sorrowful cry. He said, I want to protect our nest with my companion. If you want to kill me, then kill me. As Big Harry spoke, he flew out of the nest and pecked at the eye of a sawtooth sea boar. Heishinjo did not expect Big Harry to do this. She mumbled, you have some integrity. Forget it, I'll let you off. Heishinjo summoned the chopping board and flew out of the cave. Although a few of the shadow-skimming giant-winged birds had found her, they did not have the time to pay attention to her. They all worked together to attack the sawtooth sea boar that was gathering on the surface of the sea. The sawtooth sea pigs were clearly determined to destroy the nest of the skimming giant-winged birds. If the skimming giant-winged birds did not fight with them for food, their food would be much richer. Therefore, this was a once-in-lifetime opportunity that could not be let go. This cliff was originally made hollow by the skimming giant-winged birds when they were building the nest. With the beating of the huge waves and the bite of the sawtooth sea pigs, it was quickly broken into two. Even if the bottom half was not broken, there was no way to build another nest because it was too close to the surface of the sea. Firstly, it would be soaked in the seawater, and secondly, it would be attacked by sea beasts. To make matters worse, in order to save a young bird, the bird king was dragged into the sea by a few sawtooth sea boars. Soon the sea surface was dyed red. The shadow-skimming giant-winged birds had no leader, and it was suddenly chaotic. They could only hover in the air and sing softly. Heishinjo looked at the scene in front of her and blinked her eyes. She was naturally not a kind person. But now these giant-winged birds had no bird king and no place to build a nest. Wouldn't this be a good opportunity for her to become a king? The firmament sea was boundless. It was extremely difficult for her to reach land by herself. If she had a group of birds to protect her, wouldn't she be happy? Moreover, if she could bring these birds into the desert, she might be able to find an exit directly. She wouldn't have to cross the sea in the sky. Chapter 35:20 Taking advantage of a burning house. Yunchujo thought for a while and said to Big Harry with her spiritual sense, Come here for a while. I have something important to tell you. Big Harry was circling in the air in grief and indignation. Hearing Yunchuji's words, he hesitated for a while and flew towards Heishinjo. Big Harry, I don't need to tell you. You know that you are no match for those sawtooth sea pigs. Moreover, your bird king is dead and your nest has been destroyed. There is no benefit in fighting them head-on. If you want to find a place to rebuild your home, then cooperate with me. Heishinjo's crafty look was like a big-tailed wolf that kidnapped a little white rabbit. Big Harry obviously did not believe Yunchuji's words. How could a weak little girl help them find a place to rebuild their home? Stop bullshitting. Yunchujo snorted coldly when she saw the situation. You don't believe me? You also said that there are no islands within 10,000 miles, and there is no place to land halfway. Can you fly that far? But I'm different. I have a boat. If you follow me, I can lead you to find a suitable island or reef. Do you think I'm willing to interfere with your stupid business? It's all because of you. Otherwise, I would have left long ago. Hearing Yunchuji's words, Big Harry was silent for a moment and asked, Are you really so kind? What are your conditions? You guys are in charge of protecting my safety. This is the best of both worlds. Go and ask the other birds now. If they agree, bring me into the desert first. We can discuss it properly. Big Harry looked at his companions who were circling around and wailing. He nodded and flew towards his companions. Big Harry told them everything. Although the other demonic birds were unhappy that Big Harry had hidden the contract, Yunchuji's suggestion was their life-saving straw. They all agreed without any arguments. The flock of birds immediately flew towards the desert with Heishinjo, but they could not find the entrance. Heishinjo frowned. Could it be that the life gate of the array formation was closed because of the high tide? The flock of birds tried a few more times, but they still could not enter. Therefore, they could only agree to Heishinjo's suggestion, because there was no other way out. Heishinjo blinked her eyes. Babies love to take advantage of others. Since we are now in a cooperative relationship, We have to show some sincerity. Come, all the birds come over and establish a temporary contract with me. Then we will set off, Heishinjo said with a smile. Those demonic birds stared at each other. Establishing a contract with her. What kind of joke was this? If she was up to no good, wouldn't they just be at her mercy? Yunchujo naturally knew what these demonic birds were thinking. She sneered and said, "What? You don't want to agree? You have to be clear that you have something to ask of me. Other than me. Do you have any other way to find a new nesting site? Can your cubs follow you in the air for a long time? It's already good enough that I'm willing to help you. But you don't even appreciate my kindness. What a bunch of stupid birds." When Blue-tailed heard Yunchujo calling them stupid birds, it was so angry that it wanted to slap Heishinjo into the sea. However, when it saw the babies and eggs in the mother bird's mouth, it immediately wilted. It was still all right for them to be adult demonic birds, but these babies and eggs could not travel long distances at all. Moreover, it was unknown what kind of situation they would encounter on the way. The spiritual beast bags of humans were obviously safer. Chapter 35:21. Do you want revenge? Heishinjo did not urge those giant-winged birds. Anyway, she was sure that these stupid birds had no way out. Even if the desert gap was still there, the desert climate was not suitable for them. They could not survive in the desert for a long time, so they could only agree to her conditions. Sure enough, those demonic birds discussed for a while and finally agreed to Heizinjia's conditions with their heads drooping. Heishinjo happily collected the large flock of giant-winged birds and looked at the sawtooth sea pigs that were still gnawing on the cliff. Blinking his eyes, he asked with a smile, "Do you want to take revenge?" The giant-winged birds naturally wanted to take revenge, but when they saw Heizinjia's thin body and her level 1 spiritual essence, they were immediately discouraged. Blue-tailed bird said disdainfully, "We can't do anything to those sawtooth sea pigs. What can you do?" Yunchujo glanced at it and said, "No wonder you are called blue-tailed bird. Birds really live up to their names." Blue-tailed bird looked at its blue tail feathers suspiciously. It was called blue-tailed bird because its tail feathers were blue. Wasn't this little girl talking nonsense? Yunchujo ignored it and summoned a hua instead. The demonic birds watched as a purple piglet fell toward the surface of the sea. They couldn't help but look at Heishinjo in disdain. Although it was rare for this little girl to be able to use spiritual beasts, how could this thing deal with the sawtooth sea pigs below? Stop joking. It didn't even have the right to stuff its teeth into the sea. At this moment, they heard the little girl shout slyly, 10,000-year-old single pig. Kill these ugly monsters for me." As soon as Yunchujo finished her words, the demonic birds were stunned to find that the little pig was rapidly growing bigger. Its original purple color had turned black, and a pair of wings had grown on its back? Pigs could grow wings? The jagged sea pigs in the sea were even more dumbfounded. They had already won. Just as they were about to retreat, they saw a huge monster fall from the sky. What the hell was that? However, the sawtooth sea pigs did not take Dehua seriously. Although it looked weird, its master was only at the first level of the spirit transformation realm. How powerful could it be? However, they were soon miserable. After Dehua fell into the sea, it sent one away with its claw and two away with its tail. Even its wings, which it did not normally use, sent two sawtooth sea pigs flying with a casual flap. In an instant, it was as if dumplings were being placed on the surface of the sea. Plop, plop, plop. The sawtooth sea pigs were sent flying one after another. Those giant winged birds were all dumbfounded by what they saw. A few of them were so shocked that they forgot to flap their wings and almost fell into the sea. Wasn't this too unbelievable? This little girl's spiritual power was so weak. Why was her spiritual beast so abnormal? Big Harry suddenly remembered what Yunchujo had said about concealing her spiritual power. Could it be that this little girl really had hidden her spiritual power, and her spiritual power was actually very, very high? While the birds were stunned, they heard Heishinjo say indifferently, "Hand over the baby birds and eggs to me. You guys go and take revenge yourself." The demonic birds immediately swooped down and pecked at the eyes and other weak parts of the sawtooth sea pigs. For a moment, There was a storm of blood on the surface of the sea. Yun Chujo only used Dehua twice and did not attack again. If the demonic birds found out that she could use Dehua countless times, they would definitely blame her for not helping them to protect the cliff earlier. Not only was the human heart complicated, the demonic birds were the same. Chapter 35:22 made me happy. The jagged sea boar saw that the giant winged birds were attacking them like crazy, and they had already achieved their goal, so it was in a stalemate for a while before it escaped into the sea. The giant winged birds finally vented their anger, and their resistance toward Yun Chujo lessened. Yun Chujo was eager to return, so she naturally didn't want to waste any more time, so she said, let's go, let's go. Thus, under the protection of the flock of birds, this fellow set off happily. With such a huge flock of demonic birds, naturally no blind demonic birds would dare to come and look for trouble, so the journey was very smooth. Yun Chujo let the demonic birds enter the spirit beast pouch to take turns to rest every now and then. This not only did not affect the journey, but also ensured that the demonic birds had time to rest. At first, this fellow was still sitting on the chopping board. Later, in order to experience the Bird King's scenery, he simply sat on Big Harry's back. It was simply wonderful. Little ones, this king is very annoyed. Change the formation for this king and let this king be happy. Come, 1 line long snake formation. Another 2 dragons swimming formation. Those giant winged birds felt as if their hearts were bleeding. They had never done such a shameful thing in their lives, and they even changed their formation? Was it okay for them to go back on their words now? This little girl was simply a pervert. In addition to changing their formation, these demonic birds were also responsible for hunting for this fellow. From time to time, they would go to the sea to hunt sea fish and small sea beasts for Hei Xinjia's tooth sacrifice. Hei Xinjiu ate and drank all kinds of food and drinks every day. If she was not worried about debeiming and the East Phoenix country, this fellow felt that it was okay to wander around for a few more days. The speed of the shadow skimming bird was very fast. In just a few days it had already flown over 10,000 miles. Hei Xinjiu counted with her fingers. According to this speed, even if the vault of heaven sea was very large, they would be able to reach land within half a month. On this day, Hei Xinjiu was lying on Big Harry's back and leisurely humming a little tune. Suddenly Big Harry's body fell rapidly. Hei Xinjiu suddenly sat up. The shadow skimming birds in front of her also fell one after another. Before Hei Xinjiu could react, she fell into the sea. The guy stuck his head out of the water and cursed angrily. Are you still birds? Can't you even fly? Big Harry said aggrievedly, little fairy, it's not our problem. It seems that flying is forbidden here. It was also very aggrieved. Although it was a suborn demonic bird, it was still very scary to fall from the sky. Okay? Yun Chujo frowned and tried to summon the chopping board. As expected, it was forbidden to fly. The first thought that came to this fellow's mind was, fuck, I've suffered a great loss. Although these giant winged skimmers were suborn demonic birds, their fighting strength in the water was greatly reduced. They relied on the speed of diving down from the sky to attack the sea fish and small sea beasts. Now that they were forbidden to fly, they basically couldn't help her much. She still had to painstakingly help them find a place to build their nest. The more she thought about it, the more she lost money. This fellow secretly cursed his bad luck, but he still summoned a large ship. He only left Big Hair on the deck and kept the rest of the shadow-skimming giant winged birds into the spirit beast bag. Hei Xinjiu frowned. There must be high-level sea beasts here. Although Dehua was still considered powerful, if they encountered high-level sea beasts, it would not be enough. There were cracks on the bastard's shell. He could not use it anymore as he had no other choice. It would be terrible. Chapter 35:23. Eating a crock of meat. Big Harry saw Hei Xinjia's gloomy face and tried to reduce his presence, afraid that she would vent her anger on him. Unfortunately, he still couldn't avoid it. Big Harry, did you know that this place is forbidden to fly but didn't tell me? You evil heart, you are trying to trick me. Hei Xinjiu pointed at Long Harry and cursed. Long Harry was almost wronged to death. It said aggrievedly, "Little fairy, no, your majesty, we have never flown this far before. How would we know that this place is forbidden to fly? Moreover, if we had been here before, would we still be alive now? We would have been eaten by other sea beasts long ago." At this point, Big Harry looked at Hei Shinjo with full of expectation. "Your majesty, tell me the truth. What is your spiritual power level exactly?" Yun Chujo glared at it. "Didn't you see it? It's only at the first level of the spiritual transformation realm. You unlucky bird, get lost." Big Harry's heart was suddenly covered with a layer of shadow. It was over. He thought that this little girl deliberately hid her strength, but it turned out that she was worse than him. She was dead. If he had known earlier, he would have lived on the ruins of the cliff, at least for a few more days. Hei Shinjo held her chin in frustration and gritted her teeth. "Fuck, there will always be a way. Let's eat some roasted meat first." Long Hair looked at a certain Joe who was eating her fill and felt that her future was bleak. This little girl had obviously broken all the rules. Was she trying to be a glutton? Hei Shinjo ate a few skewers and felt a little better. Looking at Long Hair who was drooping his head, she curled her lips and said, "Silly bird, you haven't eaten roasted meat before, right? Come here, this king will reward you with a piece of meat." Long Hair was about to cry. What kind of roasted meat was there to eat at this time? However, he did not dare to disobey. He could only go to Yun Chujia's side and pick up a piece of roasted meat that Yun Chujo had given him. After a moment, Long Hair's face was filled with tears. Damn, this roasted meat was really delicious. Even if he were to die now, he would not have lived in vain. Thus, the man and the bird began to eat the roasted meat on the deck. Just as they were enjoying their meal, a huge wave came and the sea water surged onto the deck. The bonfire was instantly extinguished. The man and the bird were instantly enraged. Both of them looked in the direction of the wave. When they saw the huge monster in the distance, they immediately threw their anger to the clouds. Oh my god, they were most likely going to die. Big King, it's a level 61 bloodthirsty swordtail shark. What should we do?" Long Hair stammered. Hei Shinjo said in a bad mood, "What else can we do? Run." Hei Shinjo drove the boat at the fastest speed, but it was useless. The bloodthirsty swordtail shark was huge. After rolling in the sea for a few times, Hei Xinjia's boat was in danger of capsizing. Hei Shinjo had no choice but to release Dehua. Dehua was about the same size as the bloodthirsty swordtail shark. Seeing the two fighting, Hei Shinjo quickly ran away. A moment later, Dehua dissipated under the attack of the bloodthirsty swordtail shark, and Hei Shinjo had no choice but to release the pigs again. Then Dehua dissipated again, and Hei Shinjo continued to release the pigs. The quail on the deck's Long Hair widened his eyes in surprise. So this black-hearted little girl could release so many pigs? Then why did she only release them 3 times before? Was she doing it on purpose? Big Hair did not have any intention of blaming Hei Shinjo. Instead, he hoped that Hei Shinjo would hide as much of her strength as possible. Otherwise, if she died, they would not be able to live. Chapter 3524 could be used to refine pills or weapons. Although Hei Shinjo relied on Dehua to escape for some distance, the spiritual power in her body was depleting rapidly, and she could no longer enlarge Dehua. At this moment, the bloodthirsty swordtail shark chased after her and opened its bloody mouth to bite the big ship. Hei Shinjo quickly put Big Hair into the spirit beast's bag, then jumped into the sea and spilled a bucket of black ink. Taking advantage of the cover of the ink, Hei Shinjo dived to the bottom of the sea. After calling out "Little Bastard," she hid in the turtle shell, and let Little Bastard hide the turtle shell in the sand at the bottom of the sea. Hei Shinjo took off the hidden spirit ring, and put Little Bastard into the spirit beast bag. Then she held her breath, hoping that the bloodthirsty swordtail shark had bad eyesight and would not find her. This bastard thought that even if the bloodthirsty swordtail shark found the big bastard's shell, it would not necessarily think that she was hiding inside. It would only think that it was an empty shell. Moreover, she deliberately made the little bastard shrink the shell so that it did not look like the shell of a high-level sea turtle, so it should not attract the attention of the bloodthirsty swordtail shark. Perhaps Hei Xinjia's praying had played a role. This bastard waited for a long time, but there was no unusual movement. He could not help but feel happy. He had finally escaped a disaster. Just as the bastard was feeling happy, he felt the turtle shell begin to shake. Obviously, something was digging out the turtle shell. The bastard's heart sank. It seemed that he still could not escape. The bastard gritted his teeth. If it was really not possible, when the bloodthirsty swordtail shark opened its mouth to bite the turtle shell, she would let the little bastard put the turtle shell into its stomach. When that time came, she wouldn't be able to kill it. Thinking of this, Hei Shinjo suddenly felt confident. She let the little bastard out and let it open a tiny crack in the bastard's shell. When Hei Shinjo saw the situation outside, she couldn't help but be stunned. It wasn't the bloodthirsty swordtail shark at all. It was actually two people. People. How could there be people in the depths of the firmament sea? What were they here for? Most importantly, they were obviously going to get rid of her and the big bastard. If they found out that she was hiding in the big bastard's shell, would they kill her and steal the treasure? Hei Xinjia's heart was in a mess. Moreover, she couldn't see through the spiritual power of the two people outside, which meant that their spiritual power was definitely higher than hers. After weighing the pros and cons, she decided to take a look first. No matter what, it would be good if she could take these people's boat back to land. Moreover, these people actually scared the bloodthirsty swordtail shark away. They must be extraordinary. There shouldn't be any danger along the way. They would definitely be able to reach land successfully. Thinking of this, Hei Shinjo had the little bastard close the crack in the turtle shell. Then she crossed her legs and went into the turtle shell, looking like she was in love with anyone. The little bastard stared at Hei Shinjo with his small eyes, thinking that the beautiful owner was really big-hearted. After a while, Yun Chujo felt the bastard's shell shake violently, and she heard the sound of heavy objects colliding. She guessed that it must have been carried to the deck. Someone spoke from outside, Senior Brother Wang. Although we let the bloodthirsty swordtail shark escape, we found this thing at the bottom of the sea. Although it looks like an ordinary shell, after careful inspection, we found that it should be a good thing. It can be used to refine pills or weapons. The little bastard inside the turtle shell was so angry that he rolled his eyes. Damn it, he actually wanted to use his mother's turtle shell to refine pills or weapons. How shameless. Chapter 3525 actually had the leisure to watch the show. Hei Shinjo was afraid that the little bastard would make a ruckus out of anger, so she quickly put the little bastard into the spirit beast bag and continued listening. Soon, the sound of something tapping on the turtle shell was heard. Then a voice said, "I've never seen a sea beast with such a turtle shell before, but it's quite hard. Forget it, it's not bad to bring it back to the sect to exchange for contribution points." Coincidentally, someone shouted that they had found a sea beast, and then came the sound of hurried footsteps. Apparently, those people had gone to see the sea beast, so no one paid attention to the big 8 shell. Hei Shinjo heard the sound of fighting in the distance, so no one paid attention to this place. She secretly opened a crack on the big 8 shell and carefully looked outside. Although her vision was limited, the scene she saw still made Hei Shinjo secretly click her tongue. This ship looked very high class, at least 100 times more advanced than the ship in her storage ring. The person just now had addressed the other person as Senior Brother. What sect were they from? Could they be from the Li Hate Palace? Because other than the Li Hate Palace, no other faction would address each other as Senior Brother. Hei Shinjo pondered for a moment and still felt that it would be better to board this ship. Even if they were really people from the Li Hate Palace, she would still be able to find a way to leave before these people entered the Li Hate Palace. With this in mind, she had the little bastard turn his turtle shell in a different direction and then watch the show through the cracks. It had to be said that this guy was really bold. At this time, he actually had the mood to watch the show. Although she couldn't see it clearly, the dazzling spirit energy attacks from afar were still very eye-catching. The more she looked, the more shocked she was. These people seemed to have even higher spirit energy than the one she had killed, Instructor Lu Jiaoxi. This didn't make sense. She heard that Instructor Lu Jiaoxi was already well known in the Li Hate Palace. These people didn't seem to be very old, so how could they have higher spirit energy than Instructor Lu? Could it be that these people were not from the Li-Hate Palace? Just as Hei Shinjo was puzzled, someone turned around and looked over. Hei Shinjo immediately held her breath. Fortunately, the crack in the turtle shell was small enough, so she was not afraid of being discovered. That's strange. I seem to have noticed that someone was watching us just now, that person said strangely. Senior Brother Wang, are you kidding? Our people are fighting with those sea beasts in the sea. There are only the two of us on this ship, so how could there be anyone else? Another person said with a smile. The person called Senior Brother Wang shook his head and said with a bitter smile, maybe I'm thinking too much. We've been drifting in the firmament sea for almost 2 months this time. It's inevitable that we're a little spiritless. Another person echoed, yeah, I feel like vomiting when I see the sea. After killing those sea beasts in front of us, our mission is almost complete. We can return to the sect. Just as the two of them were about to continue talking, people came back one after another. It was bustling with laughter. Hei Shinjo was afraid that she would be discovered, so she did not dare to look any further. She only listened attentively, but she did not catch any more useful information. Just as the guy was pondering, he heard the person who was talking to Senior Brother Wang say, Senior Brother Wang, this bastard shell takes up a lot of space. Put it into your storage ring. Yun Chujia's head buzzed. There was no way a living thing could be put into the storage ring. It was over. She had been exposed. Sure enough, Senior Brother Wang tried a few times but failed to put the shit shell into the storage ring. Chapter 35-26. Hei Shinjo, who was regarded as a godly beast, everyone gathered around and said, it seems that the demonic beast is still alive. It's just hiding in the turtle shell. But why isn't there any spiritual energy fluctuation? Someone said uncertainly, when it came out of the sea, there seemed to be a weak spiritual energy fluctuation. But I thought it was from other fish or small sea beasts in the sea. I didn't expect that it was still alive. I'm really curious about what kind of sea beast it is. Quickly think of a way to get its head out. Along with the chattering, some people began to use swords and knives to look for cracks on the turtle shell, trying to open it. However, after searching for a long time, they still couldn't find any cracks. Someone suggested, Senior Brother Wang, your spiritual power is the highest. You might as well smash the turtle shell with a spiritual weapon. That way, the thing inside will have no place to hide. Senior Brother Wang frowned. If we smash its shell, it might not be able to survive. He had never seen such a sea beast before. It was better to bring it back and let the sect deal with it. If the species is very rare, we can raise it in the spirit beast garden. Obviously, the rest of the people followed Senior Brother Wang's lead, therefore someone echoed, that's good too. Otherwise, if this thing is really rare, it would be a pity if it was killed by us. Senior Brother Wang, in order to prevent this thing from escaping, you can put it into the Spirit Beast bag. The Spirit Beast pouch in Towering Sky Continent was the same as Yun Chujia's Spirit Beast pouch. It could take in spirit beasts that did not recognize its owner. Therefore, Senior Brother Wang nodded and prepared to put the bastard shell into his Spirit Beast pouch. However, after trying several times, he could not put it in. Everyone was stunned. What was going on? At first, everyone thought that there was something wrong with Senior Brother Wang's Spirit Beast pouch. However, after the others tried a few times, they found that they could not put it in, and immediately exploded. Oh my god! What's going on? This turtle shell cannot be put into the storage ring, or the spiritual beast bag. What the hell is this? Yeah, it's really weird. I've never heard of such a thing. Everyone was more and more interested in the Big 8 shell. They kept knocking and testing it. Hei Shinjo, who was inside, wanted to bang her head against the wall because of the noise. At this moment, someone exclaimed, I know. This thing might be an immortal beast or a divine beast. Although our spirit beast bag can hold a spirit beast that doesn't recognize its owner, if it's an immortal beast or a divine beast, there's no way to keep it if it doesn't recognize its owner. The rest of the people were stunned at first. Then they looked at the Big 8 shell with burning eyes and said excitedly, it makes sense. What you said makes sense. This thing has a turtle shell. Could it be? Could it be a divine beast, black tortoise? After hearing this person's words, everyone became even more excited. If it really was a divine beast, they had made a great contribution this time, and they would definitely receive a lot of rewards when they returned to the sect. Senior Brother Wang, in order to prevent this divine beast from escaping, you'd better quickly use the restraining talisman and the beast binding rope to control it. Then we'll take turns to watch it. No matter what, we can't let this big treasure escape. Right. Even if we don't sleep, we have to watch it. This will affect our future. As expected, Senior Brother Wang took out a few confinement talismans from his storage ring and stuck them on the Big King's 8 shell. Then he tied the Big King's 8 shell tightly with the beast binding rope. Hei Xinjiu, who was inside the Big King's 8 shell, wanted to cry but had no tears. How could she suddenly become a beast? Damn it, I don't want to live anymore. Chapter 35-27 was waiting as they were afraid that the beast Hei Xinjiu would run away. Those people stared at her day and night. Not only did they have the confinement talismans and beast-binding ropes, but they also made a large iron cage overnight to put the turtle shell inside. Hei Xinjiu secretly peeked through the gap to see the scene. She gave up the idea of running away and prepared to find an opportunity to escape after she got ashore. As for the imprisonment talismans and beast-binding ropes, they were all aimed at the 8 shells of the Great King. They did not affect her in the slightest, not to mention that this fellow also had a large kitchen knife in his hand. What this fellow was more curious about was the identity of these people. From their words, Hei Xinjiu was surprised to discover that these people were not from the Li Hate Palace. Furthermore, from their words, it seemed like they belonged to a very large sect. This was really strange. There was such a large sect on the Towering Sky continent? Why had she never heard of it before? From what everyone knew, it seemed that the Li Hate Palace was already the ruler of the Towering Sky continent. Hei Xinjiu thought back to when she had asked about her father's whereabouts. The gigolo had said that it was a faction that she could not provoke. Could it be that there was a bigger and stronger faction outside the Li Hate Palace? However, it was also true. The gigolo was so powerful, but he could only hide his strength and bide his time when facing his enemy. There must be an even more terrifying faction. Hei Xinjiu suddenly felt that she was getting weaker and weaker. It was rare for this fellow to have the initiative. He sat inside the king's 8 shells and began to cultivate. Just like that, nearly half a month had passed, and the big ship finally docked. Senior Brother Wang and the others put the 8 shells of the Big King onto the flying spirit tool, and everyone finally let out a long breath. This thing was a suborn demon beast, and it would definitely not be able to escape this time. Seeing that they had already reached the shore, Hei Xinjiu quickly took out Di Biming's voice transmission talisman. This guy told her about his situation in a short sentence. Soon Di Biming's cold voice came from the other side. Wait. Hei Xinjiu. It seemed that the pretty boy had already taken the antidote, because his voice had already recovered, and this line felt somewhat familiar. However, did the pretty boy know where she would be taken? Could it be that he knew this place? With Di Biming's reply, Hei Xinjiu's heart inexplicably calmed down. This fellow thought of the matter of the East Phoenix country again, and hurriedly took out Prime Minister Sima's voice transmission talisman, asking about the progress of the matter. Prime Minister Sima said with an excited trembling voice, "Your Majesty, I finally have news of you. This old subject is worried to death. Don't worry, the Star Sun Kingdom has already been taken down by our 4-kingdom alliance, and is currently attacking the Ghost Gold Kingdom and the Winged Fire Kingdom. Although the situation is extremely advantageous to us, I estimate that we will need at least 3 months to half a year before we can take it down." Yun Chuzhou was very satisfied and gave a few instructions. Then, Prime Minister Sima said guiltily, "Your Majesty, the young prince has suddenly disappeared. However, after young Master D appeared and told me that he had taken the young prince away, I didn't dare to ask further. This, you won't blame me, right?" Yun Chuzhou almost laughed out loud. Since the pretty boy had already taken the antidote, the pretty boy had naturally disappeared. Hei Xinjiu comforted Prime Minister Sima for a while before she finally felt relieved. At least, before the Ghost Gold Kingdom and the Winged Fire Kingdom were taken down, the 3 kingdoms of the Lu Earth Kingdom would not give up. As long as she could return to the East Phoenix Kingdom within 3 months, it would not be a problem. The gigolo thought of Xue Wuji again. So he took out his voice transmission talisman and sent a message to Xue Wuji. On the other side, Xue Wuji almost passed out from laughter after receiving He Xinjia's voice transmission talisman. Ha 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 ha. Little sister Jiu has been treated as a divine beast. Damn, I'm dying of laughter. Chapter 35-28. He could not escape from little ninth sister's grasp, and Feng, who was standing beside Xue Wuji, saw this and moved closer to Xue Wuji and asked, "Young Master Wuji, what did you say? Ninth Miss was treated as a divine beast?" Xue Wuji managed to stop his laughter with much difficulty. Yes, little ninth sister said that she accidentally entered the firmament sea, and was treated as a divine beast by some sect disciples who wanted to bring her back to the sect. And Fo. Although Ninth Miss was a little freakish, she shouldn't be taken as a divine beast, right? Seeing that Anfeng was confused, Xue Wuji smiled and told him what Yun Chuzhou had told him. Anfeng suddenly understood. Then, he said worriedly, according to Ninth Miss, she probably went to the northern continent of Towering Sky Continent. Ninth Miss was caught because she was unfamiliar with the place. There won't be any danger, right? Xue Wuji curled his lips. Don't worry. Didn't that facial paralysis leave in a hurry? He must have rushed to save little ninth sister. Let me tell you, let alone sealing 7 emotions and 6 desires, even if that facial paralysis seals his brain, he won't be able to escape from little ninth sister's palm. Although Anfeng did not dare to agree with Xue Wuji's words, he agreed in his heart. Not to mention other things, their venerable one had to seal 7 emotions and 6 desires again every time he met Ninth Miss. What did this mean? This meant that their honored master could not withstand Ninth Miss' charm at all. Putting everything else aside, even if Ninth Miss turned into a baby, she could still provoke their honored master to break the seal. Their honored master could be considered to have been eaten alive by Ninth Miss. Yun Chuzhou chatted with Xue Wuji for a while, and her mood became brighter and brighter. She counted on her fingers and waited for the pretty boy to save her. However, before Beiming arrived, the flying spirit tool landed. The sound of someone talking came from outside. It was probably Senior Brother Wang and the others who had already arrived at the sect, and were chatting with the disciples guarding the gate. Senior Brother Wang, why didn't you put the turtle shell into your storage ring? Why did you use someone to carry it? Person asked curiously. Senior Brother Wang and the others probably didn't want to cause any more trouble, so they said vaguely, "This turtle shell is a little damp. Bring it out to see the sun." After Senior Brother Wang finished speaking, he hurriedly brought his people into the sect. The few disciples guarding the gate looked at each other, their faces full of confusion. What did they mean by bringing it out to see the sun? Could it be that these people had gone out for a trial and damaged their heads? Senior Brother Wang and the others were afraid that there would be more complications, so they carried the 8 shells of the Big King and ran to the Spirit Beast Garden within the sect. When the disciples guarding the Spirit Beast Garden saw Senior Brother Wang and the others, they frowned. You can't enter and leave the Spirit Beast Garden at will. Do you have a token or a document? Senior Brother Wang pointed at the turtle shell that was being carried by someone and said, "Senior Brother, we have found a rare spirit beast in the vault of Heaven Sea. We are going to bring it here to let Elder Zhuge of the Spirit Beast Garden identify it, and see what kind of spirit beast it is." The 2 disciples guarding the gate glanced at Wang Baka. They pursed their lips and said, "This is the savage dragonblood turtle. Although it has the black tortoise bloodline, the probability of awakening the distant ancestor's bloodline is very, very small. It is not considered a remarkable spirit beast. You better hurry up and get rid of it. The Spirit Beast Garden doesn't accept such low-grade spirit beasts." Inside the Big King's 8 shells, He Xinjia's heart moved. This disciple's words were exactly the same as what the gigolo had said. It seemed that the little bastard's mother was the savage dragonblood turtle. However, Senior Brother Wang and the others felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured on them. Their excitement instantly vanished into nothingness. At this moment, Senior Brother Wang's eyes suddenly lit up, and he said, "Senior Brother, although the chances of the savage dragon blood turtle awakening the distant ancestor's bloodline is very small, it is still possible. This savage dragon blood turtle cannot be put into my spirit beast pouch. This means that its grade is at least that of an immortal beast." Chapter 35-29 Your whole family is a turtle. The two disciples guarding the spirit beast garden frowned. Apparently, they didn't quite believe Senior Brother Wang's words. They looked at each other. One of them tried it, but actually didn't manage to put the 8 shells of Wang into the storage ring or the spirit beast bag. Senior Brother Wang and the others couldn't help but feel relieved when they saw the surprised expressions on their faces. They even said that this thing wasn't qualified to enter the spirit beast garden. Now you see it, right? You should be scared to death. The attitude of the two disciples immediately changed. One of them said, "Wait a moment, I'll go and report to Elder Zhuge." After that disciple said that, he ran away as fast as a wisp of smoke. He Xinjiu, who was inside the bastard shell, felt as if her heart was bickering with a dog. Once that Elder Zhuge came, he would definitely think of a way to get rid of this bastard shell. At that time she would have nowhere to hide. Wouldn't she be dead? This fellow hurriedly sent a voice transmission talisman to Di Biming, asking him how long it would take for him to arrive. As short as 3 days, as long as 5 days. Think of a way to save your life first. Di Biming's reply was still very short. When He Xinjiu heard his reply, she was so angry that she gritted her teeth. Indeed, after being sealed with 7 emotions and 6 desires, she had become an ingrate. Think of a way by herself? What solution could she think of? Could she really turn herself into a big bastard? Just as He Xinjiu was gnashing her teeth in anger, she heard hurried footsteps. Then, she heard an old man's voice. "Are you talking about this savage dragon blood turtle?" He Xinjiu cursed in her heart. "You are the fucking turtle. Your whole family is a turtle, a nest of big bastards. Elder Zhuge, we found this savage dragon blood turtle in the firmament sea. At first we thought it was an empty shell, but we couldn't put it into the storage ring or the spirit beast bag. Do you think it's an immortal or divine beast?" Senior Brother Wang asked in an excited tone. Elder Zhuge looked at the big bastard shell carefully, then he smiled. "This is just an empty shell of the savage dragon blood turtle. As for the fact that it can't be put into the spirit beast bag, I guess there must be a person hiding inside. What's the matter? Why aren't you coming out at this time?" He Xinjiu originally knew that she wouldn't be able to fool him for long. Now that she heard that the other party had already said so much, she had no choice but to let the little bastard open the turtle shell and come out from inside. Of course, before he came out, he had already adjusted the hidden spirit ring to the first level of the spiritualization realm and had taken a disguise pill. Everyone thought Elder Zhuge's words were unbelievable. How could there be someone inside? However, when they saw He Xinjiu come out, they were all stunned. Senior Brother Wang and the others in particular had an indescribable expression on their faces. They were disappointed that the bastard was not a divine beast, and they were shocked that none of them had discovered that a little girl was hiding inside. Of course, some of them were angry out of embarrassment. They looked at He Xinjiu with hostility. It was all because of this little girl that they had become the laughingstock of the entire sect. How outrageous! He Xinjiu's face was filled with gratitude. She bowed to Senior Brother Wang and the others. "Thank you for saving my life, heroes. If it weren't for the heroes, I would have died in the vault of Heaven Sea. You are indeed worthy to be the disciples of a famous sect. You are quite chivalrous. I am truly grateful to you." Senior Brother Wang and the others' expressions were like mutts. How were they supposed to answer? Could they ask her why she was a human and not a big bastard? Chapter 35-30 The honored guest had arrived. They had originally thought that they had been lucky this time. If they had found a divine beast, they might have been promoted to inner sect disciples. Even if it was a divine beast, it would at least reward them with many sect contribution points. But now it had turned into a living person. A little girl had come out of it. It was simply like seeing a ghost. Seeing that senior brother Wang and the others were silent, Yun Chujiu looked at the old man at the side. After bowing, she said with a sincere face, Elder Zhuge, I can't thank you enough for your kindness. I, Lin Chuchu, will never forget your kindness for saving my life. I will definitely repay you heavily in the future. Well, since there's nothing else, I'll take my leave now. He Xinjiu was about to run away as she spoke. What a joke. If she didn't leave now, would she be punished by others? Just as Elder Zhuge was about to say something, the sound of an ancient bell rang out. Elder Zhuge's expression changed immediately. Not only him, but the rest of the people also changed their expressions. He Xinjiu did not care whether the people's expressions changed or not. She was about to run away when she heard Elder Zhuge shout, Stop! You can leave but not now. We will send you out of Chaotian sect after we welcome our distinguished guests. He Xinjiu was so frightened by Elder Zhuge's shout that she shivered. She cursed in her heartbeat. What bullshit Chaotian sect? Why wasn't it called Chaotian Pepper? Although this fellow cursed in her heart, he nodded obediently on the surface. Yes, I've found out. Elder Zhuge was obviously not thinking about her. He said perfunctorily, The distinguished guest will be here soon. Everyone hurry up and welcome him outside the mountain gate. Elder Zhuge glanced at He Xinjiu again. You follow him too. He Xinjiu felt as if a dog was bickering in her heart. She was not this so-called Chaotian Pepper. A disciple of Chaotian sect. Why would she go out? However, this guy rolled his eyes. When they were outside the mountain gate, she could take the opportunity to slip away. It would be good to follow him out. Therefore, this guy nodded obediently and followed Elder Zhuge out. Actually, it was mainly because He Xinjia's spiritual power was too low. Therefore, whether it was Elder Zhuge or senior brother Wang, they didn't take her seriously and didn't think that she would dare to cause any trouble. Of course, senior brother Wang and the others looked at her with unkind eyes. It was only because of Elder Zhuge and He Xinjia's flattery that they didn't flare up. He Xinjiu had saved her life for the time being, so she was in the mood to look around. At a glance, this fellow secretly clicked his tongue in his heart. Gosh, this Chaotian sect might not have a good name, but its grandeur was quite something. Although she only saw the scenery from the Spirit Beast Garden to the mountain gate, one could tell from a glimpse that this Chaotian sect wasn't simple at all. He Xinjiu also noticed that many people had rushed to the mountain gate at the same time, as if they were reincarnated. He Xinjiu cursed in her heart. What kind of important figure was it that made these people so attentive? However, this important figure had come at a bad time. If he hadn't come, perhaps Elder Zhuge would have let her go. Just because of this, she didn't have a good impression of the important figure that she was about to meet. Some of the people who rushed to the mountain gate were distracted and looked at Yun Chujiu. After all, the people of Chaotian sect had changed into the sect's attire to welcome the distinguished guests. She was the only one who was dressed differently from the others. Moreover, her spiritual power was so low that it made people's hair stand on end. Where did this little girl come from? Chapter 35-31 Tower Master Luchen Chujiu followed Elder Zhuge to the outside of the mountain gate. At this moment, the mountain gate was already filled with people. He Xinjiu estimated roughly that there were at least 10,000 people. This fellow was even more astonished in his heart. It seemed that Chaotian sect was indeed a big sect. This fellow had already learned from Shui Wuji that she was now in the northern continent of Towering Sky Continent. Although he was shocked, he was still somewhat mentally prepared. These disciples stood according to their ranks. Elder Zhuge's status in Chaotian sect was not low, so he naturally had to walk to the front row. He Xinjiu, this fellow, wanted to slip away for a while, thus, she shamelessly followed behind Elder Zhuge to the front row. The people of Chaotian sect didn't know Yun Chuji's identity, but senior brother Wang and the others did. However, they were afraid of embarrassing themselves, so they didn't say anything. Thus, no one objected to Yun Chujiu squeezing to the front row. Elder Zhuge arrived at the front row. He was busy chatting with the sect master and the peak masters, so he forgot about the little tail behind him. A certain Jiu stood at the side of the second row with a peace of mind. She was prepared to leave after that shit distinguished guest entered the sect. Hei Shinjo pricked up her ears to listen to the conversation of Elder Zhuge and the others. She was confused. What 9-storied pavilion, what pavilion master, what supreme chaos? Some of the female disciples behind her were also so excited that they could not extricate themselves. All they said was that they were going to meet the pavilion master. They were simply too lucky. Some even said that the pavilion master would not be here to select a concubine. Blah blah blah. Hei Shinjo curled her lips. She spoke as if the pavilion master was so amazing. There was no man in the world who could compare to her gigolo. What bullshit pavilion master was not even worthy of carrying shoes for her gigolo? Just as Hei Shinjo was complaining, a carriage flew over from the sky in the distance. Hei Shinjo clicked her tongue in wonder. The horses pulling the carriage all had huge wings on their backs. Moreover, their entire bodies were pure white without a single strand of mixed fur. They looked quite impressive. This fellow thought bitterly in his heart. Fuck, I still have the bird team. Thinking of this fellow rubbed his nose guiltily. Oh no, he had forgotten about Big Harry and the rest. Forget it. I'll find a place for them to nest when I have the chance. However, he did not know if Big Hair and the others were so hungry that they had not fed them for half a month. The fellow hurriedly took some demon beast carcasses from the great void mystic realm and threw them into the spirit beast bag. He comforted them a few more words before looking at the carriage that was slowly descending. There was a flying spiritual device at the back of the carriage. Many guards and maids came down from it. One of the maids walked to the front of the carriage and lifted the curtain with her hand. Hei Shinjo was stretching her neck to look at the people inside when she heard the people of Chaotian sect say in unison, "Greetings, Tower Master Luochen." Hei Shinjo was frightened by the loud greeting. However, this guy was afraid that something bad would happen to him, so he quickly lowered his head and bowed as well. No need for formalities. A faint voice said. The Jima sect master of Chaotian sect said politely, "It's a great honor to have the pavilion master here. Please come in, pavilion master." "Sorry to disturb you," Tower Master Luochen said indifferently. Hei Shinjo felt that the voice of the pavilion master sounded familiar. She raised her head and opened her mouth in surprise. A man stood in front of the carriage. His long hair was loosely tied together with a white headband. His beauty was shocking, and his deep and melancholic eyes made people want to immerse themselves in it. Chapter 35-32. Was he Lan Luochen? Hei Shinjo was extremely shocked. Wasn't this peerless handsome man, who was hated by the heavens and hated by the people, the Big Brother mermaid? No, that wasn't right. The Big Brother mermaid's eyes were dark blue, but this person's eyes were black. She recalled that everyone was talking about Tower Master Luochen. Could it be that he was Lan Luochen? Although Hei Shinjo was very shocked, she quickly retracted her gaze and lowered her head. If it was Brother Mermaid, she would rush forward without hesitation, but if it was Lan Luochen. Although Hei Shinjo did not know if Brother Mermaid told her to be careful of Lan Luochen, Lan Luochen's feelings for her had not been dispelled. She did not want to have too much to do with him. Lan Luochen was different from Xue Wuji. Even before Xue Wuji gave up, Yun Chujo did not have any burden when she faced Xue Wuji because she felt that Xue Wuji was just curious about her. Moreover, there were many reasons to compete with Di Baiming. However, when facing Lan Luochen, she felt that if he harbored feelings for her, she would feel bad. So, she might as well make a prompt decision and not get involved anymore. Therefore, when she was in the Tianyuan continent, she basically cut off all contact with Lan Luochen. However, how did he appear in the northern continent of the Towering Sky continent? And what did he become, Tower Master Luochen? Just as Hei Shinjo was in shock, she realized that the surroundings were silent and countless gazes were directed at her, some of which were hostile. Hei Shinjo raised her head in confusion and saw that Tower Master Luochen had already stood in front of her. Hei Shinjo comforted herself. Fortunately, she had already taken the transfiguration pill, and perhaps the person in front of her was not Lan Luochen, so there was nothing to worry about. As a result, the guy's expression was very calm. Thinking of the conversation between the female disciples, He showed a hint of shyness and bowed. Greetings, Tower Master Luochen. Tower Master Luochen didn't speak for a long time, and complicated emotions flashed in his deep eyes. When He Xinjiu was about to lose her patience and raise her head, he said indifferently, I'm sorry, Tower Master Luochen. No need. Sect Master Jima, I'm going to stay in Chaotian sect for a few days. Let her accompany me to introduce the situation of Chaotian sect. Sect Master Jima was dumbfounded and at a loss. Since when did Chaotian sect have such a weak disciple? Even a handyman's spiritual power was much higher than hers. Okay? Moreover, at such an important occasion, everyone was wearing the costumes of the sect. Only this little girl was dressed differently from the others. Was it intentional? Was it to attract the attention of Tower Master Luochen? It wasn't just the sect master of the Jima sect who thought so. The others also thought so. This little bitch was really scheming. If they had known earlier, they would have worn other clothes as well. However, this little bitch's looks could be considered average. Why would Tower Master Luochen take a fancy to her? Yun Chujo felt as if there were 10,000 divine beasts roaring in her heart. Just as she was about to explain that she wasn't a member of the Chaotian sect, she heard the sect master of the Jima sect say, All right, then let this disciple serve by your side for the next few days. Elder Zhuge came back to his senses and wanted to explain, but he swallowed his words after thinking for a while. Then he shot a threatening glance at He Xinjiu. Yun Chujo saw the threatening look in Elder Zhuge's eyes, and she was furious. However, the situation was better than the others. If she went against him with her small body, she would be tortured. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.